Welcome to Nerd on Nerd with me, Ellie Kempster.
And me, Liam Underwood. And in this episode, we are joined by returning special guests, Jason and Lee. Hey, welcome.
Hello. It's been a while. This is our first recording in how long, man?
It's been about 6 months, I believe. No, wait, actually, that's when the episodes came out. We last recorded sometime in, like, September. So, so whatever that, how many months that is, it's almost a year.
So, are you the former hosts of Atlantic Screen Connection?
For now.
Yeah.
For now. Okay,
Nice.
is it like
one of those, like, peaceful hiatus type of things where the band are kind of sick of seeing each other, so they kind of just go do some terrible solo projects for a year or two, realize their mistake, and then get back together.
Is that the way you're seeing it? I wasn't sick of seeing you.
This is just my long-term plan. You'll come crawling back. It's fine.
I didn't realise that was an option.
Yeah, no, guys, we're going on a peaceful hiatus.
It's been a while. I think, well, I just fell out of love with movies in a sense. So and just talking about them became tedious. And I mean, the conversations with Lee are great, but we're both the type of people that we don't need to maintain a conversational relationship in order to stay friends. We'll just pick up where we left off and everything's good. That's where the good sign is when you have someone that you met that you really know that you can spend quality time with, is that when they're gone, it doesn't matter. We'll just pick up where we left off if ever we decide to host again. But for now, the conversation just got so fucking boring that we decided, screw this.
Maybe we'll get into video games or something that's fresh, and we also have no idea how to talk about it. Then get to the point where we're kind of done talking about it, and then go back to films.
we could clearly steal Conan O'Brien's clueless gamer idea.
Yeah, perfect.
Because that would be me. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah, it'd be like educating Jason, something like that.
I love to learn, so this would be perfect. That's our next show, man.
Alright, so, speaking of growing tired of talking about films, in this episode, we'll be talking about Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Yep.
Yay.
But that's going to be later on. First, it's time for catching up with... Oh, wait, I need to do the alphabetics here. Ellie and Jason and Lee and Liam.
Yeah,
right?
good job,
Yeah.
Liam. You can do the alphabet.
Excellent.
Yeah, they got a great education system over there in that England.
Those public schools, they work
try
wonders.
their
Alright, so catch me up.
Who? Oh, Liam, it's the first.
This is not the last episode. I heard it too. It's ridiculous. It should be so easy. Pick a name.
You just got to say a name, Liam. When you've got guests on, especially four people, you have to say a name.
All right, Jason.
Yeah.
I know that you have lately got way into sort of photography.
Yeah.
Because I follow you on Facebook and I see your stories and pictures and stuff.
I don't like any of them, but that's all right.
I'd never
being called out
That's why you're doing it. You have to keep working at it.
Yeah, exactly. When I see
I'll
one
get
I like,
that one
I like it.
and then I can retire.
Yeah, exactly. This is what happened with the podcast. We were like, all right, these episodes are pretty good. Let's call it a day.
Exactly. I can't beat this.
So how did you get into that?
I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good thing to ask. I never even thought to ask, why were you doing this?
I had a Darth Vader action figure here in a box, and because I have like a big Star Wars collection, and I keep most of my stuff in boxes, and I don't know. There's it must be some form of midlife crisis where I miss playing with toys, but toys have always been a big part of my life, and cameras too. I'd recently noticed that there's I'm a big fan of Mitchell Wu and Sergeant Bananas, who actually do take pictures of toys for a living, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. I wonder how they process all that stuff. And so I ended up opening up my Darth Vader, and I don't know, I was fooling around, and I was like, I'll take a picture of him. I was on my kitchen table, and I just took a picture of Darth Vader, and I decided it'd be great to have him, like just a miniature version of him with his ignited lightsaber, and me in the back going like, oh shit, what the fuck's going on here? And then I don't know, man. I just kind of I bought myself a Luke Skywalker action figure, and they actually made a really good looking one. I decided I was going to open that one. Bought a second one. My girlfriend doesn't know about that until now. And I opened him up, and he was great to kind of pose. And so I was like, well, what could I do with this, And so I've always been a fan of cameras. I used to make short films, and, I still want to kind of work in film a little bit. But I feel like just taking the picture was a natural graduation from, like, just the way my brain works. When we were doing the show, making talking about movies, it just became such an intellectual process, and I kind of gave up on the fact that I want to be an intellectual. It became boring to me to know shit, and so I figured I wanted to work with my hands a little bit more as well. And movies, they just involve so many different people, so many different talents coming together to put to make progress somewhere, and it just became boring to me to have to wait that amount of time. And so I looked around my apartment. I was like, I have all the actors I need. I have a camera. Why the hell not? Why don't I just make all of this into one little picture? And it gives me an excuse at 39 years old to just play with fucking toys. And
the dream.
Just,
every child's dream.
Kind of, yeah, in a sense. And it was weird because I just started wanting to learn how to create action sequences and stuff like that, make them come alive in a way. And I just started reading on it, thought it was really fascinating, and decided to just run with it for now. And I've been having a great time. And the community online as well is super welcoming. There's a lot of people that reached out to me and tell me that they like my work, but I reached out to them first, to inquire as to how do you shoot this? What kind of lens are you going to be using? Is there a specific lighting and stuff like that? And so I started getting a bunch of gear. It just so happened to be around the time it was my birthday, so people were sending me money for my birthday and stuff like that, because I'm still a kid at heart. And yes, I just started, getting more equipment and getting better at it and stuff like that. And here I am today, just having a blast making this one single image that tells the whole story it needs to tell. Yeah. And I don't need anybody else, except it's like being in your own little bubble and just going about your business and never minding what the hell's going on. So it's great.
My favorite ones that I've seen so far are the ones where you have like an explosion effect going on.
Yeah. The recent one was with Captain America, I think.
Yeah, so how do you go about creating that effect?
So for the explosions effect, there are two ways that you can do it. One, I saw there's a guy called Sir Dork who just went viral because he uses explosives with his toys. Yeah. But to create explosions, he uses this gadget, which is essentially a something to unclog drains.
Okay.
Oh, all right. And so there's a pump at the bottom of it right here that you kind of pump to whatever amount that you want to create how much debris you want. And then there's a trigger and you release it, and it kind of creates this just big air explosion. And so the thing is that depending on the angle that you decide to put on it, you'll create either flying debris like you saw in the Captain America one, or I could put it, there's another one that I have with the Mud Troopers from Solo, where it's like in water and stuff like that, and you can have flying rocks and things. So that's to really create chaos. And another one is with just a keyboard cleaner.
Okay.
So you put the nozzle on it right here, and then after that, what you do is, depending on the angle you decide to put it at, you can actually kind of create this line of flying dust or sand or flour, depending on what you're trying to do. Yeah. If you turn it upside down, it actually creates smoke. They tell you not to do that on the can, but at the same time, it creates a really great effect. So I do that most of the time as well. So you can see a shot like that with the Millennium Falcon chasing Boba Fett Slave 1 that I had posted online. That was the can turned upside down with flying debris and things like that. So it's just to create an effective movement. Yeah. So it's just picking up here and there, what people have been using and things like that, and just trying to use that to my advantage. Yeah,
and do you use much like Photoshop stuff as well? Because I know, I think for like the lightsaber effects and stuff, maybe, or like lasers. But do you use it for anything else?
I've recently started using it a little bit more. I try to get everything I can in camera because I don't like cheating. Yeah. So most of the time, if you see the debris effects, if you see, like I was talking about, I recently posted a picture of a Funko Tyrannosaurus chasing the Millennium Falcon. All the effects are done in camera there. I'll just, it was this can essentially using to move the sand that they were in just to create that effect. The other, I do little touch-ups just for color, You know, so
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
they would just, bring up the brightness, the contrast, and things like that. But the other little thing that I might do is just erase the wires that I'm using to hold those action figures in the position that they are.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, they do that in movies, so I don't figure that that's cheating in any way. So no, I don't. I try not to add as much. I'll add maybe a little flair here and there, but other than that, like the Captain America shot is essentially the way it was. If I look at my
Yeah.
Photoshop file, there's the flare, and that's it. And then I just put
Yeah.
my name on it, and we're done. I don't need to touch it up again. So yeah.
So that was going to be my next question. Is like whenever I've tried to pose figures in the past, I can never get them to stand up.
Right.
So how does it work with the wires?
Oh, so I use a 16 gauge steel wire.
Mm-hmm.
So they look like this kind of.
Okay.
All right, and so this is a short one that I use. Let's say for I was taking pictures of Chucky yesterday, and so he's kind of small, so I use something like that. And depending on which one I want to use, so I'll have something that's longer in length, and then I'll fold it in a way where it actually creates the support that I need to counterbalance the weight of the figure. All right, so
Makes
what I'll
sense.
do is I'll put, let's say, this little end here underneath Captain America's arm in order to
Yeah.
hold him a certain way so that he's in his action pose. And then after that,
That's
I'll erase
smart.
that wire.
Yeah. Because I have like some horror figures in boxes, but I just can't bear the thought of taking them out of the box. It makes me really uncomfortable.
I completely understand. I have
Jason used
more
to be
in
just
boxes.
like that.
Yeah, but there's some of them that I will not take out because first of all, the head sculpts on the figures don't look good.
Yeah.
But they're older, so they're more valuable than the new ones they're putting out.
Right.
So I'll just leave those in boxes because I don't feel like taking a picture of a weird-looking Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the horror ones are fantastic. I see
I've got
you've got
a,
the Chucky right there, don't you?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I've got a
he's
Michael
great.
Myers one as well with like apparently the pumpkin lights up, but again
Right.
You'll
it
never
makes
know.
me and like on the back of the boxes they have like those sort of pictures where they have like the nice sort of backgrounds, like is it dioramas? Is that what you'd call that?
Yeah, that's there's a guy that I know in town who reached out to me because he liked the shots that I was taking, and he's lent me his diorama to
Oh,
take
nice.
pictures in, and he's going nuts with what I've been doing. So it's really
That's
fun.
cool. Yeah. I saw in my local shop yesterday there was a Bride of Chucky one that has both Tiffany and Chucky, but it was like 76 quid, and I was like, I can't justify that for something that I'm just going to put on
Yeah.
the shelf and never open.
It's the same thing for me. Like the guy that I know, who builds dioramas, he's a crazy enabler. And he sent me a picture yesterday of like an SH Figure Arts Thanos. And
Yeah.
I was like, God, that looks good, man. Then he shows me the price. I was like, $120 for an action figure about that high. But like
Yeah.
he's gorgeous. I mean, all the points of I could do whatever the hell I want with him. But I mean, if I come home with that, my girlfriend leaves with it
Yeah.
and everything else, and she's like, we're done, and I'm taking Thanos.
So the other thing that like absolutely fascinates me about these pictures is the lighting.
Yeah.
So how the hell do you get the lighting like that?
Oh, well, I'll send you a picture of that too, because I'm a fan of posting the way that I do those things,
Yeah.
because apparently, like, a lot of people do it in the community, and I just kind of picked up on that. I was like, you know what, I'll share the way I make the pictures because a lot of people out there are wondering how the hell you do that stuff. So
Well, sometimes
there you go.
it's almost more impressive seeing how it's done than seeing the end result.
Oh yeah, definitely. Which is why we like, behind like bonus features on DVDs. It's
yeah.
like, how did they pull this one off?
Yeah, like,
So-
that is crazy.
Yeah, so
So was this the diorama that you borrowed?
yeah. It's actually a diorama he had built for a friend of his that he sold him because he just wanted to display some of his action figures. And the thing is that the dude was moving out of his mother's place. What a cliche.
Oh,
And so he finally got his own place, and the diorama was just sitting there. And so Miguel, the guy who built the diorama, says he reached out to me when he started seeing my pictures because I'm part of a Star Wars Facebook group. Go figure. And he was like, "Dude, where are you from?" And I was like, "I'm in Quebec City." He says, "Well, where the hell are you?" And so it turns out we live a 15-minute car ride apart from each other. And he says, I build these dioramas. Would you like to come over to my place and check it out? I'd love to lend you this. And then he started showing me his collection of action figures. He's got if he doesn't have 50 stormtroopers, he doesn't have any at all. He has everything, all of them. And he says, you can borrow anything you want, anytime you want. And I was like, we've never even met face to face, man.
Just imagine how big the world is, and these two toy nerds are 15 minutes away from each other. It's ridiculous.
And so I went over to his place for an afternoon, and then I spent about 5 hours there just taking pictures. I made one that was completely insane with Chucky and 11 fighting with lightsabers.
I think I saw that one actually. Yeah.
And so that one, a lot of people like that one. And so he just was fantastic. So he built that, but he had never seen it kind of shot in different ways. And so when I showed him the potential of it, depending on the angles and stuff like that, he was like, "Oh, we have to do more of this stuff." And I was like, I'm fine with it, man. Let's just make a bigger diorama. Let's give that guy back his. Not that I want to. It's just that he asked for it, and I have to give it back this week. Which makes me sad.
Oh man!
Exactly. Oh man! But we're probably gonna get into building one. And my girlfriend is funny. She was like, I think I'd love to build dioramas. And I was like, well, you have a form of patience that I don't think I have. Because there's no fucking way I want to sit down and start sanding, little parts of whatever the hell they use. The styrofoam and all that shit. And I'm like, no way. I just want to make the guys fight. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can probably get some, almost ready-made ones with, some of the Games Workshop, scenery that you can get from there.
Yeah, but it doesn't look as good, man. You have to weather it.
You have to paint it and stuff.
Yeah,
and it costs a small fortune.
There's that. There's that, man.
Yeah.
The diorama that he built, the one that I've been using, cost him $25 to make. He goes
ridiculous.
to the dollar store and you just pieces everything
detailed
together.
for 25 fucking bucks.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
See, if someone was like, "Oh, build this diorama for me," I wouldn't even know where to begin.
No, I completely understand. I don't get it. Some guys, Leslie sent me. Or showed me yesterday, rather, a guy who builds dioramas for his model train sets.
Yeah.
It's insane. It looks real when he's done. And he's using real leaves that he shreds and, little sand. And then he creates his own glue. And I was like, that's a serial killer that just kind of went the other way. It was like, I don't think, maybe killing people's... What if I build these? You're like, okay, he's channeled it into a very strange thing, but he was this close to killing people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if I said to Kat that I was going to someone's house for 5 hours to take pictures, I don't know if she'd be
Little
impressed
suspect, perhaps.
or disappointed if I came back with pictures of toys.
Oh, well, I mean, the thing is that the guy likes me, and now he takes me on his regular photo shoots, and he happens to shoot calendar girls. And,
Oh, perfect.
And he works for Porsche as well, so he's the
Yeah.
photographer for Porsche here in town. And it was really funny because I talked to Leslie. I was like, hey, he wants me to go hold a softbox. We're going to be going to take pictures of women on rocks. And she was like, well, what does she look like? And I showed her a picture, and she was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah. I realise this has sounded kind of like I've just been grilling you about this for ages. So, Ellie, if you have any
I love
questions...
talking. I've never got a chance to talk about it, man, so this is great. So thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for indulging with me.
Happy to.
Yeah, no, it's cool hearing someone talk about something they're super passionate about.
That's sort of the whole point of this part of the show, right? I mean, I know it's also a bit of us giving us like a diary update, but we've kind of gone through the stuff that we're passionate about at this point.
Yeah.
So now it's just a loveless, flaccid conversation week after week.
Oh yeah. When me and Liam do it by ourselves, it is literally just, what have you been up to? Nothing. What have you been up to? Nothing. All right, let's do the rest of the show.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, you guys don't have anything that you're really up to?
God, no. Life is very boring at the moment for me.
Why?
Why is that?
That you
It's
have
just
control
all work
over that, don't you?
it's all work and editing podcasts and recording podcasts.
Okay. I guess we did the right thing, Lee.
Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, I went for a sports massage this week, which I've never done before.
Ooh. How
And
was
that-
that?
Yeah,
How does that work? What's this? They fire tennis balls at your back?
No, so
football
right,
shoes.
so typically, from what the lady was saying, a massage is quite a nice, relaxing experience.
yeah.
A sports massage is more if you have an injury, they're trying to help you fix it. So I think it was like February time when I went skiing and fell and landed on my shoulder.
Right.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it hasn't quite been right since. So my personal trainer recommended that I go and get a sports massage to see if they could figure out what was going wrong.
Okay.
And it turns out that there's like a knot in my shoulder. So a sports
Fucking
massage is
whacked
them
it a
sort
couple
of,
of times to try and get it out.
yeah, it's them going really deep into the muscle to try
Right.
and. So it's not exactly a nice relaxing experience.
No, it's painful as fuck. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I did that, and now she's given me some like stretches and stuff that I need to do to try and help, which
Okay.
I need to do. But like,
Is it
that's the most exciting
Yet
thing that's
to be
happened to me
done.
this week.
does it has it affected you at all? Does it feel like it's loosening up a bit?
Yeah.
It's starting to, but I haven't like been back to the gym because it normally only really flares up when I'm like doing weight exercises, and
Okay.
I haven't since. I just haven't had time. So I'm going to go tomorrow and sort of try and put it through its paces a bit and see if I need to book in for a second one or not.
Okay.
Fair
But
enough.
it was a solid like 45 minutes of someone just constantly like
Pressing down
kneading.
on that one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does just.
It's like having a teenager at home.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, and she was like next day, it's gonna feel like I've just been stamping all over your shoulder.
Yeah, that's what Maria went to one once, and the lady who did it was just like, don't think of me tomorrow, but think of me on Wednesday.
Yeah. 2 days later, that's all right. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like my absolute nightmare because I had one massage once that wasn't a sports massage, and I hated it.
Why?
That was uncomfortable because they just they're gently poking bits, and I'm like, that hurts.
How did you get into a situation where you were having a massage?
We were on holiday. Everyone was going to the spa to get a massage. Someone was like, "You should do it. You'll love it." I went in, sat there for an hour, and at the end, they sat up and they were like, "Oh, I'm just so relaxed." And I sat up and went, "Can I leave now?" I hated it.
That's what I fear my reaction would be, because I just don't like being touched.
No, yeah.
So-
I already don't like that. And then they start it's when they're doing shit like they get you oiled up and you're all slimy, and then they grab your finger and yank it, and you're like, don't
No.
touch my, why are we doing fingers?
I think it depends. I mean, I remember when I was playing sports when I was younger, I used to have to go in for massages. I don't know if he was trained massage. Anyway, he was the guy that my father used to do lots of karate with. So he was he knew a lot about
Maybe he just fancied
physical
you.
activity.
It's like, oh, get that guy sat
My dad
down.
was there,
Maybe I can
fucker.
rub his
Careful
shoulders for
what
a while.
He's not sending me to see some guy that's just gonna fondle me. And so anyway, I remember it hurting, but it felt good 2 days later. So I'm okay with that. And funny thing is, you guys remember the episode of Seinfeld where George goes in for a massage?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you
One of us
rather
does.
it be a guy?
No.
No.
I'd rather it not happen.
No.
Okay, I'd rather
Yeah,
it
I would
because
be.
I feel like the guy is gonna really get into it. You know what I mean? Whereas a woman, I know that she's been
Hot.
trained and shit like that. And I'm not trying to sound sexist or anything like that, but nothing's gonna happen if the dude's there. So, you know what I mean?
See-
I'm gonna ugh.
Yeah, after having a woman do the sports massage, I'm so pleased that wasn't a guy, because she was going deep enough. I'm like, I don't need that to be worse.
I'm really sorry if this sounds sexist. I'm not trying to. I'm pretty sure that they're
No, I
just
get
as
you.
strong with the techniques and stuff like that. But I just felt like I felt more comfortable with
Yeah.
a guy doing
Yeah.
it than with a woman.
See, after having it, I'm now like, I'd be tempted to try a normal massage. It's never really appealed to me before, but in a weird way, once you kind of get used to the pain, it did almost start feeling relaxing. So
Well, it's like one of those. Like I tried this. I was at a spa thing the other week, and it has one of those heavy showers that you're in
Yeah.
the pool, but you press this button, and this hose just plummets water down on you, and you're supposed to stand under it like a waterfall and
Yeah.
just get
Yeah.
pelted by water for a bit. And it's just a little bit of agony at first, but it eventually sort of just goes I might fall asleep and drown here. Yeah, I'd imagine a good massage would be like that.
yeah, exactly.
Like a slow, peaceful death.
I think me and Ellie should do like a spa day one day.
Are you
Why?
guys? You guys
That's
fans of
because
spas?
for content. That's good
I've never
content.
done one.
I'm not.
just-
I've never been to the spa, but I have this weird thing in my mind. Is am I taking a bath in public with people I don't know?
Yeah, it
noticed
sounds
that.
like my nightmare.
Yeah,
I thought
I'm
you
not
you used to love all the hot tub stuff and all that. We had like a whole
I
debate
like going
about
in a
it.
hot tub when you're on a cabin holiday with friends and you're just chilling out in a hot tub. I don't want to go to a spa where I'm like lying in a bath of mud. Like, but mud baths. Everyone says they're relaxing, but it's a bath and you get dirty. That doesn't make sense to me.
I completely understand what you're saying. I completely agree with you. Let's go get dirty
It's all
together.
just-
No. Now I have to clean up all these fucking things all over the wrinkles that I have on my body now because I'm aging. Scrape
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going in to get weathered. It doesn't make any
Exactly,
sense.
yeah. The whole thing's just ridiculous.
So Lee, what have you been doing with your time now that you're not recording?
Fuck, I don't even... all kinds of shit.
This is catching up for me too, by the way.
Yeah, I
I have
know,
no idea
yeah.
what Lee's been doing.
I guess since the podcast, or since we stopped doing the podcast, I had spent about a year or so not really working, kind of just trying to do the writer's life, which was starting to feel badly. And then at a point, Maria and I actually went into business for a little while and started a graphic design company that was doing pretty well until we drove it into the ground with horrendous amounts of debt. So that was a learning experience.
That's the way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'll know never. I can't be trusted in business. You know, I just have to work for somebody. So after that, in the last couple of months, I started a job with a cycling company to do the writing for their website. Which, you know, it's almost like I got to use my degree. It was almost like it was important. It was like literature for bikes. That was a pretty good thing. But I actually, as of this Friday, have just left that job.
No fucking way. Really? Already?
Yeah, I know.
You're
I
going to
know,
move
which
on to
is-
motorcycles now? 2 wheels?
Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna write for Daytona or something. No, fuck, it's a whole fucking it's just a nightmare. I can't. I've struggled yet to find the words that don't make me sound like an impetuous asshole for leaving. But essentially, I wasn't forced, but I was shafted a little bit, and I very much took it in the way that you're supposed to take it, I think, which is to tell them to go fuck themselves and then go get yourself a new job. So I didn't have time to get myself a new job, but I did tell them to go fuck themselves.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm kind of now in between a couple of things, got a couple of things on the horizon at the moment that I'm excited to work on. But I
What
recently,
happened? I want to hear more about this story. What happened? Why do you think...
I don't know how much is like, can you say this shit? Like, if it's like a company and like other people's lives on the line, but
I think it's
You don't have to
essentially
name anyone, but I mean,
is.
essentially,
Yeah.
what was the reason? And not in broad strokes.
The reason was right. For 3 months, I was on probation. I had a full contract, but I had to pass a probation, and I got to the sort of end of that probation when they suddenly decided to delay the signing off on that probation.
fuck
Then I got sort of held back for a meeting one day. We got a different boss just take over, and he basically said the metrics by which you had been doing the job have changed. And not only now you have to do your probation again, but it's going to be twice as long, you know. And so to me, that was like, and I was the last guy to join the team. And from a very, very cold, practical scenario, I totally understand why this happened. You know, like because the company was restructuring a little bit, and they're kind of looking to kick people out somewhere down the line. And he wanted to keep me on tenterhooks to say, well, you know, if he performs better than the guys who've been here for a while, maybe we can ditch one of them. But at the same time, I could only ever see it as, you just want to keep me on probation because you could fire me at any point and you don't have
And you
to
can pay me less.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, right.
Fuck them. That's stupid.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, and a lot of my other boss, he was kind of like, he didn't see there was a problem with that because he was just like so assured I could fucking do the job and just get on with it and be there 6 months later, not a problem. But to me, it was kind of missing the point. You know, it was a bit of a fucking slap in the face to have worked hard and done my job well, and then to be told, hey, you know, it'd be great to let you stay here or do that job, but you know, at the end of the day, we might have to let you go somewhere down the line. You're like, oh well, don't worry, I'll show myself out.
I think as well, like when you're in a company like that and they're restructuring, there's always a case of it could be like last in, first out sort of
Well,
thing.
that's why I'm not personally upset about it, right? And I'm not angry at the boss guy who came in. I'm not angry at the system that trickled down to get that guy to say, "Hey, your probation's being extended." Yeah. I don't care. In my head, that's how companies work. Fine. In a cold, matter-of-fact way, that is how corporations treat employees. And, I'm not going to pretend like it was more important because it happened to me rather than it happened to other people. It always happens. You just kind of have to roll with that to an extent. And it shouldn't always happen, but it does. Yeah. And I don't take it personally, but at the same time, knowing myself, there's no fucking way I could pretend to work for a company that values me that little for 6 more months. And I just put all smiles about it, it's never going to be the same relationship.
Yeah, and with the probation period, so that works like both ways. It's also like a way for you to figure out if you're a good fit for the company. And it sounds like you kind of reached the end of that probation period and was like, no, this company isn't a good fit for
exactly.
me.
This is the way they do
the best
business,
way to look at it, you're giving me the out. And that's exactly what I did. So the next day I came in, I went home that night, I talked through with Maria, who was immediately, my instinct was I should leave. She was like, her instinct was you shouldn't leave. And by the end of the night, even though I had decided to stick with her way, she came back around and said, "No, wait a minute. You should fucking get out of there. Fuck it." It's like, you were right in the first place. And I was like, okay. I'm glad. And so that next morning I sat down and handed in the notice and had a full-on conversation about essentially telling them what I've just said to you is, you've kind of fucked me over here and I'm not going to really just sit there and take it. But it was good. I mean, it was cathartic.
Yeah, I bet.
Obviously. Not dare I live the American dream and tell my boss to go fuck himself.
Should have done a Fight Club style. Just start punching yourself in the face.
Yeah, that's true. I should have. There was more room for drama there that I didn't go for. So yeah, there's a couple of things I'm looking forward to over the next while, but at the same time, we're kind of in a pretty decent spot that I'm not really in a rush to jump into another company. And hopefully I'd like to find work that's kind of more loose and less structured and corporate like that place. Because this is now like the fucking 10th big company job I've done. Yeah. And just somewhere down the line, each and every time, I either get worn down or the company fucks me over, one way or the other. And other people can really buckle down and persevere in those scenarios. And I keep fucking... My instinct flares up and I'm like, I can't bear this place. I'm just going to start fucking things around the room. Yeah. So it's probably better for me to figure out a different line of work than this admin shit that I've been doing for the last while, or the writing stuff for a company, that kind of shit, and see what else is out there. So it's been interesting. It's an interesting week.
Yeah.
Take pictures
of
toys.
Forced you to record.
Yeah. What?
I said, and then we forced you to record with us.
See, this is what happens. It always seems like a therapy session when we're on here.
Well, that's why I said yes to this.
Yeah. It's like, God, I just need to get some things off.
It's always good to talk to the nerds.
Yeah.
I had other people ask me to do podcasts, and I said no. So
that's true.
We feel very honoured then.
We do.
Yeah. It's nothing honourable about it. You just have to sit here and listen to us.
More than happy to.
I want to hear more about like how you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Go on, Eddie.
What?
There you go. No, you called a name.
Yeah, you did. You've got me with the name.
You still jogging?
No.
Okay. That's the last update that
None
I
of
had.
us are.
Was that you guys were going for walks and jogging or bicycle rides?
I still walk, but it's the same amount I always walk, and it's, I'm no healthier, but maybe I'm not getting up more unhealthy.
Yeah.
Well, when we all recorded together
Stability's
last, it was about just over a year ago, and I just started on my little health kick where I was dragging you out like bike riding and stuff with me.
Yeah.
But you've moaned so much about that I haven't bothered this year.
We did one bike ride.
We did like two, didn't we?
Because you
I did
are
some
so...
with Kat. No, we did two.
What, together?
I thought so.
No, we only did the one, me and you.
Oh, I did more with Kat, didn't
Just
I?
Yeah, you did
twice
more with
as
Kat.
long.
Yeah.
I like bike rides. I just don't like Liam's bike rides. It's fine.
What's because he goes too fast? Is that it?
He goes too fast and is very confident, and then doesn't understand if you're struggling to get up a hill.
Well, no, I can understand the struggling to get up the hill, but I understand Liam's want to be fast. I like the speed.
no,
When I'm on a
100%.
bike, I'm like, well, I'm not here for a joyride. Let's go. Boo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
why
totally
you
get it.
that's why you do bike rides on your own, because
Well, I
then you
wait.
can dictate your pace and not have to drag people behind you.
Yeah, I wait very patiently, and I'm not like, oh, come on, guys, let's get going. I'm not like, I'm very much just like, I'm happy to just sit here for 10 minutes and wait for everyone to catch me up.
Right.
But I think that makes it worse because then you're emphasizing just how unhealthy I am.
I'd say it's an objective to kick his ass.
Yeah.
But I can't.
Not
Too
yet,
far
you
away
can't.
at all times.
Give yourself 2 years.
Yeah.
Climb that
Okay, I
fucking
like
hill.
that. I'm going to secretly work out for 2 years, and then I'm going to be like, Liam, we should go on a casual bike ride
There
together.
you
And
go.
then
That's
I'll just
exactly what it is.
fucking zoom off.
Be awesome.
Or build yourself one of them jet bikes or some shit like that. Like, let's go
that
for
would be
that
cool.
bike ride.
Yeah. See,
That seems easier.
I've been trying to convince Kat to do it again, and she's very reluctant. I'm like, what if we rent, like, for you, an electric bike? Because that way, you don't really have to worry about going uphill or any of that sort of stuff. Because you just, I don't know. I don't really know how to work. You just turn it
why
on.
would
Isn't
why would
that one
Kat want to
step
go on the bike
closer to
ride?
those little like wheelchairs with like an electric motor and shit like that? I feel
mean-
like you're like eventually balance is gonna go, and you're like, well, if I want to go up the hill, I need that chair now. I've never understood the electric bike. I've seen guys use it. It's really interesting when going up the hill, but it kind of defeats the purpose of getting in shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it does. But equally, if it makes my life quieter, and it means I still get to go out bike riding.
Yeah, electric bikes are quiet.
Yeah.
But Liam, you could, if you wanted to go for bike rides, you could just pop in some headphones. You've got a car, you could drive somewhere nice, go to a big open area, and you could just cycle around with some headphones in. You don't need Kat or me there with you. I know you like having company.
Yeah, and
but
I
you
would
might
probably
like
get
cycling
lost.
by yourself.
I might get lost.
Oh.
Well,
I mean,
that's true.
you saw me trying to follow that map.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
I think the likelihood of me getting lost is high. But yeah, what else have you been up to, Ellie? Like since we last recorded with Jason and Lee.
The full year recap, not just the last episode. You're like,
Jesus.
go all the way back to June 2018.
There's been like nothing major. Like it's all just very...
How's the love life? We haven't discussed
Well,
that in a
let's not get
while.
into that because that's the same as it was a year ago.
Okay.
Really, you're still fucking left and right? That's insane.
Yeah. The stamina required is ridiculous.
Jesus.
That's
No
why
wonder
you can't do the
get up
bike
the
ride.
hill on the bike, man.
Exactly. I'm just so worn out.
Pounding away.
Yeah, no, it's all the same old, Liam. You know this. You're just dragging out this segment where I don't have anything to say.
Have you been reading any books? You usually read a lot of books.
Oh, were you guys? When was?
Did you guys
was the
finish
last
the High
time?
School Musical books?
I've done 3 of them.
That's it? You guys haven't gotten any farther than that in a year?
Yeah, no, I honestly have. Yeah, I started reading Goosebumps and Point Horror instead.
That's right.
Yeah, Liam's got this new thing where he's working his way through.
This is my
every
midlife
Goosebumps
crisis.
and Point Horror book.
Yeah, I grew up reading them, and then at the start of this year, I was like, "Oh, I need to read all of them and record them for the podcast." And Ellie's loving every minute of it.
That's awesome. I'm sorry, I haven't been keeping up with any podcasts,
No.
so I'll try to
You've not
get
been
on.
keeping up with Liam and Ellie. That's the whole segment.
I know. It's just one of those things that I feel ashamed because I'm like, but I've just been listening to music, heavy metal mostly, feeling great.
That's totally understandable. I mean, if I had the choice between listening to us or that, I would pick that.
No, it has nothing to do with you guys. It has to do with me just disconnecting from people's voices.
I noticed you removed yourself from Twitter as well.
Yeah, I've just fuck it. I still have an account. It's there. But I deleted everything that I had before because I just realized that part of the conversation that we were having with film was, I don't know if it's because I'm Canadian and Lee's Irish, but we can't seem to get along with any Americans because it's not a conversation. It's just yelling your opinion into a void, and there's no place for discussion. And I think that that's my mistake, is interpreting a social medium as a place where you can actually have a conversation where you can't. It's just one of those things that's impossible.
You're looking for a forum or something where like it's gated to a very select amount of people.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, even when I go back on Twitter and I look at like the hot takes and shit like that, I'm still, sometimes I'm tempted to answer, and then I come back down to my senses and realize, first of all, what would be the point of that? And second of all, am I really interested in this person's answer? So I've always thought those two questions on my mind now, and so I don't tweet. I look at the news. I see what's trending and things like that to see what kind of dumb shit Trump came up with that day.
Yep.
And occasionally, like, this came out, so I'll be able to go check that, But other than that, nah. And it's liberating. Very, very liberating. It's I tend to try to be more of a positive person, and I've noticed that it's just so fucking negative, man. Twitter is a fucking cesspool of garbage, and it's frustrating.
I mean,
probably not going to use that in the next ad.
Yeah, Ellie probably has a lot. So with me on Twitter, I'm very selective with who I follow, and if people start getting very negative or like yelly, I just unfollow them, remove them from my timeline, and I've kind of like curated a Twitter experience where it is generally pretty positive things, and you're definitely right. It's hard to have a conversation, but it's nice to like every now and again when you put a tweet out there, you generally will get somewhat positive responses, and I'm very quick to
seem to foster good conversations on Twitter more often than not. Every time I sort of jump in and see it on the timeline, it's like you've got like Amanda or somebody, and it's a full-on conversation of back and forth between the three of you.
Yeah,
whereas we replied to somebody, and then it's like, "Fuck you."
Exactly.
Last Jedi sucks, and you guys suck too.
Oh man, that was a conversation that just wore me into the ground.
Yeah,
people are still sore about it. I mean, even now, I'm mostly on Instagram because I'm posting my pictures, and then occasionally I'll have this one comment, "Last Jedi sucked," and I'm like, I'm really sorry that your mom took you off breastfeeding too early. Get the fuck out of here.
But like my experience on Twitter is going to be way different to Ellie's experience on Twitter, because obviously I see like the sort of stuff that you're retweeting, Ellie, which is a lot of like trans news and all this sort of thing, and there is just so much like hostility and negativity around all that sort of thing.
I basically use Twitter
fucked up, man.
I use Twitter to like berate myself in the day. I'm like, I'm just going to pop onto Twitter to see what hatred I can find.
Oh god,
that's not true. I usually try and find I'm just like, I don't know. It's weird because I didn't used to use Twitter very much. Yeah. Then I started using it, and it was just bullshitting around on Twitter. Then I stopped for ages, and then I came back on, and just now it's like a lot of trans stuff or weird film stuff because of our connections through the podcast.
Right.
So like my Twitter experience is people being like, "Oh, I really enjoyed this film," and then someone else being like, "Trans rights are in danger," and I'm like, "Man, my day is weird."
That's a jump. But I usually Ellie's stuff is always very inspiring or socially conscious when it comes.
That's a good account to follow. Then I'll go do that.
Yeah.
It's weird.
But I never see the bad side of it. I never got to see the fucking the comment. No, it doesn't post underneath it like "fuck you." I never got to see that side of things.
I think I've only had, because I'm not followed by a whole lot of people. Like even.
But I'm sure your tweets fall into the sort of the trends that are important about like trans rights. So obviously it's going to attract whoever's looking for that, be they good or evil.
I think I had one tweet where I tweeted something like personally about trans stuff and had people commenting being dicks. But in the end it was like 3 people, and I was like, and the tweet was all about, it's not a debate, so I'm not going to debate you. And then like these 3 people commented mean stuff, and I said to Liam, I went, well, the best thing is, if I don't respond to them, I've proven my point about not debating them. Yeah. So,
but what was also good about that was someone else was jumping in and defending you and the point that you were making.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't need to debate them because this other person's doing it for me, and I'm proving my point. I'm having a great time.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
So I've only made the mistake. It shouldn't have to happen,
but it's pretty good.
I've made the mistake once of like engaging with someone in a film thing where they were like, so like if you think, I think it was last year, like, if you think Avengers Infinity War was the best film of the year, you're not going to the cinema enough. And that just like, I hated that attitude, so I responded to it, and that just opened up a whole can of worms that I was like, instant regret. Like this is the side of Twitter that I don't want to be a part of. So I kind of like disengaged.
One of its only sides, though.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's very weird going from all this like people arguing very intensely and passionately about film stuff to then seeing what Ellie's sort of retweeting about, which is like, these are like actual lives that are being affected by this sort of thing.
Yeah, that side of Twitter is definitely more like I follow a lot more sort of political voices and minds out there, YouTubers who are all about social change and socially conscious, and that side of Twitter is about the only thing these days keeping me going, because I can go on their account and just scroll through and be like, okay, that's funny, they're calling out some asshole, or that's funny, or that's good to hear, that doesn't, destroy my faith in humanity. But then then I still have a lot of the context that I had established from doing the podcast and the film reviews, and it's actually kind of amazing that there's still you're getting tweets on the feed that are like, post your favorite film that's underrated, and it's like, okay, I mean,
it's just baiting, isn't
surely
it?
Everyone has had this conversation by now. Who the hell is just joining Twitter and like, oh my god, this is my chance! I can finally tell them about the film that they've never discussed! And of course they've fucking discussed it. You know they have.
I don't know.
That's just tedious, that shit to me.
It feels like, from, what's his face's fucking movie? Dazed and Confused, when Matthew McConaughey, he says, what I like about going out into bars? He says, I keep getting older and everyone else stays the same age. And I feel like that's the kind of way to look at Twitter, is that I get older and everyone there stays the same age. And I'm just like, I don't even know if I can handle this conversation anymore, because I'm like, who cares? Who cares what are the most 5 underrated? Everyone's going to have a different opinion. You're sparking debate for absolutely no reason.
Well, it's also that nobody uses that to actually learn or take recommendations.
Exactly.
It's literally to shout what they like and then shit on people when they say something they don't like.
Yeah. And I completely agree with Liam. If Avengers Infinity War is the best film you saw last year, then you need to get out more. And I'm like, well, what if this person, is in a situation similar to mine where he can't afford to go to every fucking movie. He's got a family to take care of. I am living in a location where it's actually difficult for me to get to English films because they play them at an ungodly hour. So, I mean, if I manage to get to the movies 4 or 5 times a year and I watch 4 shitty movies and Avengers Infinity War, which I like, yeah, it happens to be the best movie I watched that year. That's my reality. Who the fuck are you to tell me that it's not a good thing? That I need to get out more. Fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
So it feels like people, they don't take anything into consideration except for that one thing you said. There's a context around all of our lives that people are like, nope, that tweet, that's who you are. And you're like, fuck off. I don't need this.
But I think equally as well, like, if you did go 100 times and saw a wide range of films, but you still found Infinity War your favourite, that's still valid.
Yeah,
it's a taste thing, right?
That take just rejects any approach. It's like, oh, I watched 200 films this year, and Infinity War I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck you don't get to have that opinion because you ... question mark.
It's this weird snobbiness that it's very prevalent on Twitter, and I don't have time for it. As someone who as someone who unashamedly loves the High School Musical films, I can't have time for film snobbiness.
I have short and very particular time I use in the day, and this isn't it. This is not a part of that.
No. Alright, should we go on to the reviews?
Sure.
Awesome. Cool. Hosting. That's how that works.
Yeah.
Alright. I will pick someone. Ellie.
Pick me, Liam.
Yeah, what have you got to review this week?
Nothing.
Perfect. That was
I'm
absolute waste of
halfway
everyone's
through,
time.
I'm halfway through a few shows, and I haven't been. I went to the cinema 3 times before the last episode, and was like, oh, I've got so much to talk about, and then have done nothing since that. So.
Awesome.
Well, that's fine.
I mean, that means next episode's going to be fucking jam-packed. It's great.
I can't be promising that, Lee.
Alright, Lee, how about yourself? Have you seen anything at cinema, read anything, watched anything on TV, played any video games?
Yeah, I've done much of that. I've seen in cinema, I've seen Rocket Man.
Okay, yeah.
John
how was that, man?
It was. I thought it was really good.
Cool.
I don't know. I mean, I came out of it and thought, there's not really going to be anybody who's not going to enjoy that, on some level. Maybe they don't like how it ends, or maybe they kind of lose interest as it goes along. But I don't. It was one of those films. It's like, that's just generally pleasing to watch. That was just an interesting slice of somebody's life, no matter how accurate it is. That was just well made, well produced. Musical section's really good, and it starts out really rocky, and then it kind of it kind of builds up really well. And by the end of it, I was like, fuck yeah, I'd watch that again. Why not?
Yeah. I think, like you said, like the fact that it isn't like an actual musical instead of like Bohemian Rhapsody, where it was trying to like fit the music in where it was sort of relevant to the time period.
Yeah,
that allows it to be a bit looser with the story it's telling.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's also a point where it's probably not a lot of people's thing, and so that's why I can kind of understand, like, if you don't like musicals that are actually musicals, that they have set pieces or they have little numbers where like you're removed from the action of the film for a little while. I think they strike a really good balance throughout. They like a lot of the songs come at very dramatic moments that get the point across that would have otherwise been gotten across anyway just through dialogue. They've managed to turn a lot of Elton John songs into kind of very poignant narrative moments, which I thought was surprising because I never thought his songs would have any of those. And so I was surprised. I'm not a big fan of Elton John, and I still really enjoyed the music in it and how it was done and how they incorporated it into the story. So that's why I kind of think it's hard to think of somebody who wouldn't come away from it if they sat down and watched it start to finish and think, that was pretty good. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what it is. Do you do scores? I can't remember.
Yeah, we do it out of 5.
Out of 5, I'd say 4. Give it a nice above middle 4. Not a perfect film, but certainly for a biopic. It also it avoided a lot of things I don't like about biopics, like based on a true story and shit like that in the opening, or constantly establishing places like, oh, this is the year and that's the time. It really just fucking went in on it and didn't bother to trail in the details. That was good. I thought it was surprisingly confident of them. Yeah. I watched both seasons of Fleabag. I don't know if you have seen this already.
I still need to finish season 2.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen on the show you had covered it recently or something.
Yeah, Ellie recommended it to me, and I watched both seasons. And now I'm waiting for Ellie to finish watching season 2.
Of course, I feel like every time we get on the show, that the exact same exchange with insert different property, film or book. Yeah. Ellie recommends, you finish it, and Ellie trails behind. Yeah. I fucking loved it. What the fuck? It's what a great. Starts out super funny, starts out super relatable, and then gets to the point where you're really attaching yourself to the characters. It goes super fucking dark and miserable, and still relatable, but just a great time. It does a really good job of how, a great number of takes on how to deal with guilt and trauma, and in a very grounded and human way, and also in a very darkly funny way. Yeah. That it's one of those films that kind of makes me sick because, TV shows, because it's so well done from start to finish, and there's not a wasted episode, and it doesn't outstay its welcome, and it just kind of makes me kind of want to crawl up and die a little bit. So good job, Phoebe.
I love all of the breaking the fourth wall stuff, like the looks to the camera, all that is just, it's my favourite thing about that show because it's just done so well.
Exactly, they've done it. That kind of trope can be very, very mishandled in other properties, and this they've not only incorporated it into the narrative, but they've really pushed how funny it can be to take yourself out of a scenario and just comment on what's happening. It's a straight up 5 out of 5 recommendation for everyone. It's just one of the best things I've seen on TV in maybe a long, long time. And again, you burn through it in 2 evenings. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Yes. Other than that, I'll not bother with video games, but I've been doing a lot of reading, and right. It's because I got one of those fucking coffee table books, the 1001 books you have to read before you die. I was on holiday in Donegal at one point, and my uncle's house, and he had a version of that book, and the place doesn't have Wi-Fi or anything, so I was kind of bored, and I fucking started flicking through it. I got everybody in the family to count up how many they had read, and I was on something like 30 or 40 something. It wasn't very low. I don't know if I was in one. It was very low, but it was also pretty good in our household. But it was very low in general. I just kind of went through it, and I was like, I should just. I kind of think I should probably read a little more than I do, maybe when I get back from this holiday, I even looked at the bookshelf, and there was a book on there that was on the list, and I was like, okay, I'll spend this holiday, I'll read this book.
Was American Psycho on the list.
It's on there. It's on there. Yep.
Good to know.
Yeah. That's what you're like. Scribble down one. And that book was Portrait of the Artist as a young man.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty
by
good.
what's his face, Dublin dude. Can't even remember his name right now. Ulysses by James Joyce. Yeah, James
Joyce. Yeah.
Which is not easy to recommend, but certainly it was a good read. It's one of those challenging books, I would say. Not
as much as
necessarily
Ulysses.
to me, but like, oh yeah, and certainly not next to his other fucking work. But it's one of those books that's kind of just, it's got that modernist style of not exactly always abstracting where you are when you're reading it, and swapping between times, places, and characters as you go without any sort of seeming transition. And I think that's an obvious no-go for a lot of readers who just don't want to have to deal with that shit. Plus the story is while it was good from my perspective, because it deals with a guy who ends up being a passive writer, and he's always a bit of a little bitch in school, and then he fucking grows up and he starts to think he's the hottest shit around. That was like, I can relate to that. So I thought that was pretty good. I don't feel like I'll score books, especially classic literature. Kind of feels like a bit of a dick thing to do. So I just say, would I recommend it? Yeah. If you like reading kind of terse weirdo shit. A couple of things I did read that may be more recommendable. I went through the audiobook of Wild Swans, which. About 3 generations of women growing up in China during the turn of Mao, and then up till about his death. Utterly horrifying. It's all true, by the way, and utterly horrifying. One of the best books I've ever had. I was going to say read, more like had read to me.
Yeah.
But fuck yeah, Wild Swans. Holy shit! It's one of those books that kind of changes your life because you finally understand how the world works in a lot of ways. And it's breeze to get through because it's just very well written. So that's an easy recommendation. We did Under the Skin on the show once, and I finally read it. I said on the show once, in fact, that I was reading it, and now fucking whatever it is, 2 years later, I finally did read it. And it's really good. It's different, but it ends at just the right fucking time. Like. It's like at a point where the story could go on forever, essentially, and be just more miserable and more fucking sad. It just stopped, and I was like, "What the fuck? This is great!"
How does it
finally
compare to the
somebody
film?
knows? Huh?
How does it compare?
Favorably, definitely. The film is very different in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It takes sort of the general concept of the character and her place in it, and a few of the sort of general surroundings, like the picking people up in Scotland.
Yeah.
Concept is still there, and the kind of doing something with those people in a weird sci-fi kind of way that carries over, but the way that what they do is totally different, and the message it builds is it's not left open for interpretation in the book, and it's also a totally different thing. So like it's pointedly about something that's not what the film's about. The film draws on a lot of things like sexuality and sort of ideas about sort of, I don't know, I can't remember, it's been ages, but like there's definitely something about sex and gender in there, and you can do all that kind of fucking reading from it. This has nothing to do with that, almost, like it's far more about like mankind as a species and what the fuck we weigh ourselves up as, and it's equally interesting in a totally different way, and also it's a fucking very light book, so you burn through it. I could go on and on.
Have
like
you
this.
seen the film, Ellie?
I don't think I have, no.
I think it's one that you'd enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. If you like sort of mild horror, but also sci-fi and thought-provoking
that sounds good
It's
to
a
me.
very abstract film. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is, and we had a fucking ball talking about it.
Yeah.
We had Carrie Lynn on that episode, I believe, and did we have Jason as well?
No.
Or no, just Carrie Lynn? Yeah, but she fucking really brought it. Like, it was great. The only other thing, I mean, I could go on for days and days because I'm stuck on a couple of books that I'm reading which are boring and slow. So I'll
Which ones, man?
fucking Romance of the Three Kingdoms
Okay.
is one of the oldest Chinese books, and it's like an episodic retelling of the historical battles between all these different clans in China. It's kind of good in that by reading it, you can see like where shows like Dragon Ball Z come from, in that that sort of very episodic, like cliffhanger nature, and the sort of battles that all sort of mean something, maybe more. And if you've ever played the Dynasty Warrior games.
Yep.
That's what it is. That's what Dynasty Warriors is.
Right.
Like it's just a game version of this novel or sort of series of stories. It goes on and on and on though. Like it never seems to end. And you kind of get the point of like why you should be reading it about sort of 10 to 15% of the way through. It just does that forever from that point onwards. It would be good to see adapted a lot of times though. There's lots of really good parts in it. And it's amazing to see if you can go back. I think it's literally almost 1,000 years this was like compiled, and that storytelling really, like in terms of like episodic storytelling, has really not shifted that much. They've really just kept like it's violent and politically minded, and it's about a bunch of people upending each other's lives one after the other, and there's so many beheadings, and it's on paper it sounds fucking awesome. But when you actually read it, it's a bit of a chore. So, like, the other one, I'm almost finished, Around the World in 80 Days, which is fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Was that another one that was on this 1001?
Yeah, these are all on this
okay.
fucking.
Yeah.
That's why I'm bothering, and that's why I'm going to stick through the ones that I'm like, like 80 Days is fine. I even read the fucking 2 Alice in Wonderland books. And I mean, I just didn't like them. Just not even like I don't think they were bad. I just didn't like them. Like I think that they're well written, and I think I would, if I had read them as a kid, I would have loved them because they're very creatively fulfilling. They really draw on that abstract part of the human mind that just wants to go places that just endlessly. But as an adult reading it, it's kind of laborious, and that whole, maybe it doesn't have a meaning, maybe it does, sort of nature to books, and like drawing attention to that as it does so often, I kind of like, oh, you kind of can't really have it both ways, man. Like just write something about something or don't, fucking don't like, oh, but not all things have to have meaning. Like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, but that's how I've been spending my nights. Sadly,
fair enough.
Is being a bookworm, and if you want to die fulfilled, apparently there's only 950 odd books to go. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have the patience to go through a book like that, doing like all 1001. Like, I could do films, probably, maybe, probably not.
I was talking to somebody about this last night, and they said, when you get the film version, give me a call. Like when I get the fucking film version of this 1001, I'm like, okay, but I don't want to watch 1001 films.
Yeah,
I want to read. That's an actual challenge. Watching 1001 films, I'm like, ugh. I've already watched like 200 in my life, and I'm done.
One of the things that I really struggle with that kind of thing is when you're working through like a list like that, and you're watching things because you feel like you should, or like reading things because you feel like you should, as opposed to because you actually want to. Yeah. And I get that there should be a balance, because sometimes you can like have these really nice surprises, or it will like broaden your sort of horizons, and you know there's a danger of being stuck in like an echo chamber of just doing what you like over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
But
and
it's
that's why
that
this
balance.
is it gives the good opportunity to be like, okay, this is what other smart people supposedly think are good, and there's a lot to choose from, so we have an option here to really expand and grow. And I mean it, like I said with Wild Swans, like it is somewhere in there you might find something that is genuinely life-changing or changes the way you think about things. But I do have a separate rule when going through this, which is if I get sort of halfway through a book and I literally can't go any further, I'm still going to fucking count it, and then I'm going to count that I've read it, and then I'm going to stop. So, like, Great Expectations, for example, to pick one off the fucking list, is a book that I have tried to read 4 times, and I have gotten up to about 60% through it. Yeah. And then I leave it for a while because I'm so angry, and then I come back to it like 2 months later, I have now realized I don't remember anything of the last 20%, and then I fucking start reading it again, and I get angry again, I get to that point again, and then I stop, and then the cycle repeats. So I've had it, Great Expectations. It's over. I'm not going to read you. I'm never going to finish you. Fuck you. I'm going to watch some shit film version. It's going to be crap because the story itself is crap, and then I'm going to fucking stop. But yeah, so like if you do ever do something like that and you get yourself locked into that position, I think roles sort of outs like that are important.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, once you feel like you're not getting anything more from something, you really have to ask yourself, why are you still doing it? And in cases like Great Expectations, where you get the point of the story and you've got it for a very long time now, like to find that it goes on for another twice as much as you already, like another exact amount that again is insane, and to go through that, like I feel the same about Moby Dick. I've tried. I'm about 40% through Moby Dick, and I'm pretty sure there's got to be no more ways to describe seafaring and whale hunting. But apparently he has 60% more book to go. Like, what the fuck happens that makes this so interesting? It's not been interesting for fucking ages. And so I don't know. I might keep reading Moby Dick, but at the same time, I've counted it on the list because I do feel like I could stop reading here, and if I ever had a conversation with somebody, I could bluff the rest and get away with it, you know. So yeah, I think there is in these challenges a great reason to have an out.
Yeah. So yeah, Lee, you should have given up with American Psycho.
Don't pretend. No, you forced me to read that fucking book, Lee.
Yeah, I did, and you know it was worth it for the podcast, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd also like to point out, Liam, your mild hypocrisy in trying to sort of talk about how, working your way through a list of books and how, you've got to do it sometimes because you can find these surprises. And the hypocrisy is that you're currently reading Goosebumps. Don't pretend like you're on par with Lee, who's reading 1001 books that, like, people are like, these are so meaningful, and you're doing Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Hey. That's an episodic horror series.
Hasn't he earned Goosebumps, though?
I don't think he has.
I think I have, definitely. The thing is, like, what I'm finding with Goosebumps and Point Horror is it's getting me excited about reading again, which is more important.
Yeah, the fact that you're actually reading other stuff, have started reading other stuff as well as that, is a good thing.
Yeah, although I've started to struggle with that now, but we'll cover that in a future one. It's got boring. But anyway,
okay.
Jason, have you got any reviews you'd like to do? Films, TV shows, video games, books? I think that's everything that we cover.
I watched Luther season 5. That was excellent.
Okay,
really
good.
That was really good. Because season 4 was rather lackluster in my opinion. It was all right, but I mean, there was a couple of things where I was like, why? But this one, I felt that they raised the bar in a good way, and the story was interesting. So I thought Luther season 5 was really good. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes from there, because I think that they might actually go for a season 6. I think Elba likes doing it, so that's really fun.
So I've never seen a single episode of that, and everyone's always it's really good. But
it is, yeah, man.
I struggle with Idris Elba. Like, I don't know why. I've yet to see a performance of him so that I'm like, oh, that was really good. And whenever I see him in interviews,
kind of see it.
Yeah, I see him in interviews and stuff, and I'm like, I don't like your attitude, so that puts me off of seeking out his stuff.
Oh,
everyone says Luther is good.
Well, it's because
Luther, it's like his role, like he really goes to town with it, and where it's what put him on the map. It's what kind of makes you think about him all the time now, because it's just like
I thought it was The Wire, but yeah.
It. Well, I know, yeah. I mean, that's obviously what launched his career, but I think Luther is what he's going to be known for when all's said and done.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
And but there's a really good reason for it. Like it even when it gets to its most sort of just generally procedural, not very interesting, he carries it very well because he's such it's such a well portrayed character that he does put a lot into for what it is.
Okay, good. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I didn't know that was the end of the sentence. It sounded like you had something else to say.
I've talked enough. That's why I gotta curtail somewhere.
Let's see what else. I watched Avengers Endgame like everybody else in the world. I liked that. That was good. I don't want to give it a grade, but it made a lot of money. One movie, Scorsese just put out Rolling Thunder review, a Bob Dylan story by, I think it's Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
By Martin Scorsese. Okay, so Rolling Thunder review, a Bob Dylan story by Martin Scorsese. I started watching that. and I can comfortably say that the Beat Generation are assholes. It's just nonsensical. I was trying to watch it, and I was like, well, it's a Scorsese documentary about Bob Dylan. Yeah, it's a folk period, it's the mid-'70s. It should be interesting in New York. And then I realized, I don't know why people are, just celebrating these people as artists. They're just drug enthusiasts that happen to be at the right time at the right place because they were celebrating whatever the fuck was going on at that moment in time. So
I think people like want that more than they sort of celebrate it in my head. Like people by listening to that music, they get the vibe of what it would be to be in that position where you just sort of coast around in life for fucking days at a time, getting high and fucking kind of spewing out a bunch of chords with muddery lyrics over the top of it, and you were a superstar for a period of time, and people sort of dream of capturing that a little bit.
I can get it, but I mean, being creative for creative's sake is not good in my opinion. There's a lot of
that's what we do. We're not very good at it.
No, but there's a lot of garbage. I mean, I was Bob Dylan. I've never been particularly a fan. I get that why some of his music is really good, and he's shown in the documentary as someone who was maybe perhaps not as nuts as everybody else, and so I think that's why he's probably better perceived, as a Leonard Cohen type, possibly really good lyrics and stuff like that, knows how to, harmonize everything, put it all together into this nice little neat, efficient package. But I mean, there's a part of the documentary where Patti Smith is like going on and on about some archer going into some kingdom to rescue a woman who wants to be princess, but she's marrying a sultan, and you can see that she's just like completely like, this is drugs talking to the point where you're like, this is no longer art. This is tedious bullshit that I have to put up with, and I'm like, fuck you. And they're all clapping, and it's just like, at least you're getting it out emotionally, and you're like. But there's no thought process involved. There's no calculation. There's no control over what the hell's happening at that moment in time. And to me, that just becomes a jumble of nonsense. And I'm like, I had Lewis Carroll to do that to me 150 years ago, and I'm fine with it. I don't need Patti Smith from 1975. And so it's a bit strange. I think that this is the kind of nostalgia that I don't understand. Yeah. And that's probably my problem. I'm pretty sure if I show this to my parents, they'd probably be like, yeah, we weren't into this shit either. It's a very special group of people that kind of stood out at a moment in time and just decided to get wasted together. And I understand that it's out of context because I didn't know what was going on in politics in Vietnam and, that whole period in time where it seemed like people were fighting for... I think what I'm trying to say is that watching a documentary like that with a bunch of white people trying to express themselves feels like the epitome of white privilege at a time where other people didn't have rights. And so to kind of indulge in a moment like that seems to be stupid. I mean, okay, you're lost, but you're kind of lucky to be doing this and coasting along by your nonsense. When you have other people in the street getting hosed down for basic human rights, and you're like, fuck you. How dare you come tell me about that archer and the sultan with the woman and all that shit when you could actually be doing something else that's not necessarily creative but impactful. So, it just seemed to me that I was like, well, fuck you. I don't care about this. I think Scorsese loves Bob Dylan, and this isn't the first time he's actually made a documentary about Bob Dylan. I think we've said everything we need to say about Bob Dylan now. He's 78 years old. I'm pretty sure he's producing still good music and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure that he's past his prime now, and we could just let it be. Yep. So the review of whatever the hell it's called. What is it? What did I say it was? Anyway, that
Rolling
Thunder review, Bob Dylan story by Martin Scorsese is a waste of time. Unless you're really interested in that period and you're really well versed in it, and you like the Beat Generation and Ginsberg and Kerouac and all them guys, go ahead, you'll have a blast because it's playing to your sensibilities. But to me, I'm just looking at crazy people with a microphone. So, boring as shit.
Fair enough.
Let's see, what else did I do? What else did I watch? Watch a couple of comedy shows. Anthony Jeselnik's latest comedy show is really good. I like that. But other than that, nothing comes to mind really. I haven't been watching anything because I won't say that I'm done, but I feel like I've kind of lived that life and I'm on to something else now. When I watch something, I do it for fun. I don't do it as homework, and I think that that's what it became now. Is I had a lot of planning to do with the last semester in college. I was teaching the literature and cinema course that needed to be redesigned, so I was able to kind of go back into lit theory and have a lot of fun building the class in an accessible way for this level of college student, because there's university after here. And it was really interesting to teach them about structuralism and feminism and psychoanalysis, and get into social criticism, which I branched off into African American criticism, and then to teach them about deconstruction. And so working with the stories that I was with there and the movies that I'd already seen there was really, really kind of fun, and it was difficult work, but it was fun in the end. So I didn't particularly feel like diving back into sitting on a couch and shit like that. My girlfriend and I have been doing, great stuff together, going out for exercise and just getting, off the sitting down and what do you want to watch tonight? And, that bullshit. So, I'm looking forward to watching a couple of things, like Jordan Peele's Us. I haven't had a chance to watch that yet. I want to watch Black Klansman. That looked really good.
Yeah, you should.
And Godzilla, I had a fun time, so we'll get into that a little bit later. But other than that, I just kind of don't give a shit.
Fair enough. So I saw Ma at the cinema.
Oh, really? How'd that go?
Yeah, I mean, the trailer, I was like, that sounds promising.
Really?
Yeah. No, I mean, I like my horror. And
yeah.
when you add in someone like Octavia Spencer, who's going to bring like an element of class to proceedings, I was like, oh, this has potential. The thing about it is, I think maybe, and this is partly my fault because I like my horror, it didn't like go as far as I needed it to. Like, it sort of just felt like it was lacking bite, and I got to the end of it and was like, oh, is that all they were trying to do with that? It felt like there was more there, like they could have made
the concept was richer than they could actually dive into.
Yeah, like they could have made it darker or more twisted, or like when you go to when I go to a horror, I'm looking for like those couple of images that are gonna like sort of burn into your mind, and then when you're trying to like sleep at night, that night, that's what you're thinking about.
You've just described why I don't watch horror.
Yeah, and this didn't have that. The only good thing is it had. I think her name is Diana Silvers, who was recently in Booksmart, which was also super good. Yeah, and she's like the lead character in this, so it's really interesting seeing her, and kind of like I'm very excited to see what choices she does next, because she's a great actress who I think hasn't got like a load of stuff behind her, so she's sort of like up and coming. But yeah, just Octavia Spencer is obviously very good, but she's not really given enough in this film to go beyond good to something that's like memorable. So this was like 3 out of 5. Like, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. It's just there's like one thing that they kind of do that you're like, oh, that's a bit out there, but then they like immediately back away from it, and you're just like, well, why did you do it then? Like, if you're not going to commit, just don't bother.
Maybe the original script was really fucking crazy, and the producers were like, we got Octavia Spencer for this film, let's tone the fuck down. This is going to be a little more prestige than we were expecting.
Potentially, but equally, like, the bit that is a bit out there does involve her doing something that you're like, well, if she's willing to do that,
why not go all the way?
Yeah. Obviously, I've got to be careful with what I say, because no spoilers, but... yeah, it was alright. It was 3 out of 5. And then on Netflix, I watched Dead Like Me.
Oh, is that any good, man? I've been thinking about it.
I enjoyed it. The issue I had with this is for the first like half, I kept comparing it to a show called Flaked. Now, if you haven't seen Flaked...
Yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, you're not going to have any issues. But for me, because I love Flaked, this always felt like a sub-quality version of that for the first half. Then, once it gets like the second half of the series or season, it starts kind of breaking away from those comparisons, and it becomes interesting. Like, I'm a huge fan of Linda Cardellini, which is why I watched this, and she's excellent in it. It's also Christina Applegate, I believe, is the other person that's in this.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah, and I've not really seen her in a lot of stuff in the past. Like, I know she did Anchorman, I think, and some of those
She's mostly known for TV work.
Yeah.
She was with Will Arnett in I don't remember what other fucking TV show they had together because he's in Flaked. But the other one, she came of age in Married with Children, the 80s, 90s show. So,
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of familiarity with her. I thought she was good. It's just, it's one of those shows, right, where, again, like, a part of it was I think it was badly marketed because I went in expecting something different to what it ended up being.
Okay.
Like, for me, when I was watching the trailer, it looked to me like Linda Cardellini's character was slightly unhinged and had more going on with her backstory than what you actually get in the show. And I can't really blame the show for the way it was marketed, but there was definitely a level of adjustment for me to kind of be like, oh, right, okay, that's not what they're doing.
Huh.
And then for me, I also had to get over the Flaked comparison. So it did just take me like a good 6 episodes before I could kind of get into it and what he was trying to do.
That's over my limit. I go up to 4.
Yeah, I mean, it was still enjoyable enough. It wasn't like I was really struggling or anything. I was just like, every episode would end and I'm like, oh, I wish it was a little bit better. And because Flaked is this really good character study, and this doesn't have the character study. It just has the plot elements of Flaked.
Okay.
So it just kind of feels a bit more accessible, I guess. Like they're almost taking a slightly easier route with it.
ABC's Flaked.
Yeah, and it's fine. I'm very curious. The way it's ended is, I mean, I think it recently was announced they got commissioned for a second season, and that's not a surprise. It ends in a way that you're like, oh, they're gunning for a second season. Sometimes I don't like it when shows do that, but with this, I am like, okay, I'm curious to see what they're going to do next with it. But equally, it's one of those shows that I'm like, I don't think it's going to just go on and on and on. They need to have a very definitive end in sight with this, because once they deal with how it ends, I don't know what's left to really do. So
Start again.
Right. Yeah, 3.5 out of 5.
Cool. I forgot to mention that I did watch another TV show, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I watched the entirety of Grace and Frankie.
I heard really good things
boy.
about this.
What? What'd you say?
I've heard really good things about this.
Yeah, the first 4 seasons are great. The 5th season sucked.
Oh, okay.
And so it was really fun. It was a great idea and all that stuff. But, I mean, by the time you get to the 5th season, it feels like they really tried to play their greatest hits and no longer makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you have these.
This is what we call the Friends scenario.
Yeah. Well, the
Get
thing
to
is,
the halfway point, then cop out for 5 seasons.
well, I feel like that's exactly what they did, because Grace and Frankie essentially. Well, do you guys know what the plot is?
No, in case our listeners don't.
Okay, well, the thing is that Grace and Frankie are married, okay, to 2 guys, and they end up getting divorced because the 2 men actually fall in love. And so the guys go off and have their relationship, and then Grace and Frankie themselves are stuck kind of dealing with being in the same situation. But their personalities are completely different. You'll have Frankie, who is more of the hippie Patti Smith type that I was describing earlier. And then you'll have Grace, who is going to be more of a business-oriented person. She had her cosmetics line and all that stuff. So you have these very conflicting personalities ending up under the same roof because they ended up having to move into the beach house that their now ex-husbands had bought together because they used to go to family retreats and stuff like that. But they that was their basically their sex pad. It's really interesting to see that happen, especially seeing is that it's Sam. Was it Sam Waterston? Martin Sheen, Jane Fonda, and what's her name? Lily Tomlin. There you go. So and so these people are in their late 60s, early 70s, and some of them are actually close to 80 now, and it's kind of interesting to create a story around people that are that age, that especially for men coming out at that age where they're like, okay, I just can't live with it. I've been living this lie for 30 plus years, and then they have to come out of the closet, and how it affects everyone who's been in this routine. And so that's it. But you can the most of the show relies heavily on the clash in values and lifestyle between Grace and Frankie, which makes for really great entertainment. However, I've realized now that going into season 5, you can only go so far because they rely on each other to keep themselves good. You know, they're really good friends, but they kind of hate the way that they live their respective lives. But eventually they start realizing that they do respect each other for who they are. And then you're like, that makes a lot of sense, because once you start getting to know somebody and everything like that, you kind of enjoy the quirks more of what makes them different to how you approach life.
But contented friendship doesn't make for good TV.
Exactly. So the thing is that then they subvert that every single time by having one of them just blow a gasket and revert back to the person they were. But that's
just
the
start
trick.
wildly going out of character.
Exactly. And so
Or
then
back
you're
into older character.
Exactly. And then you realize, like, wasn't it last episode that you were crying in her arms, saying how lucky you are, and now you're shitting on her in today's episode for the way that she is?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, it doesn't make any sense anymore. And so that's it. Season 5 was essentially that train wreck where they start out with an issue, and then by the time you get to the 10th or 12th episode, it's resolved, but everything in between didn't make any fucking sense with who the characters were established as being in the first 4 seasons. And you're like, oh man, this is lazy fucking writing. You know, take a couple of years off, go back to the drawing board, try to figure it out. But yeah. So up until season 5, you know, was really fun. I liked it. There's their kids are in there trying to deal with that stuff as well. So yeah, give it a shot. If it's on Netflix. If you guys have Netflix, watch the first 2-3 seasons, and you'll be like, this is really fun. And then when you hit season 5, you'll be like, oh shit,
Then
this
brace yourself.
really sucks. Yeah. So that's it. Sorry, that's all I had to say.
No, cool, fair enough. Yeah, that's definitely been one that's like been on my radar. It's just there's so many things that I want to watch that end up sort of superseding it. Cool. Yeah, Ellie, you've definitely got nothing right.
I mean, definitely, yeah. No,
Just
I haven't.
checking. All right, do you want to
I
lead
haven't
us
got
into?
anything, Liam.
Do you want to
Don't
lead
rub
us
it
into
in.
the next part then, please?
It's housekeeping.
Is that it?
I don't do funny bits, Liam. That's your thing. And by funny bits, I mean problematic bits that nearly get the show cancelled.
Let's keep the house. So because Ellie hasn't got around to editing and uploading the last episode yet, we don't have any feedback or correspondence on that.
Yeah.
There were no responses to the tweets that I put out asking if anyone had any questions.
Excuse you? Oh no, my one's for later on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So yeah, how's the rest of Rat Queens, Ellie?
I've read more Rat Queens, Liam.
Yeah, I'm aware.
It's super good. Like the first volume is so good, and then like volume 2, all of the volumes I've read so far, which I think is 4, have been really good. There's this weird thing that happens in volume 3, which I finished volume 3 when I was at work, and I was like, oh shit, I need to read the next one. Like, got it on Kindle, opened it, and I was like, this doesn't connect at all to what I've just read. This is totally different. Like, same characters, but nothing to do with what just happened. So I ended up Googling it, and I hadn't heard this until I Googled it, but the artist from the first 3 volumes, I think, was put in jail because it turned out he was this super abusive dude, which, like, super fucked with the guy that wrote the whole graphic novel. So there was this massive gap in between volume 3 and 4 that I just didn't know about, and he basically just went, the ending to volume 3 makes no sense, it's non-canonical, but there's no reference to it in volume 4. So if you don't realise that or look it up, you would honestly just be like, what the fuck? Like, this is just it's just randomly a different story.
What the fuck?
So it's really weird, and it's annoying because that volume is still really good.
Yeah.
But just, if I hadn't looked it up, I'd have been so confused.
Is it like with Lumberjanes where the art style changes?
The art style changes, but that's not an issue particularly. It's more that the story is just like they're in one place, and there's this story starting to happen, which seems very dramatic, and then the next scene is them back at their main, whatever the town's called. I can't remember the name of the town, but they're back there and they're just chatting, and you're like, what? This doesn't happen. So it was very jarring.
Yeah, interesting.
But if you know that's going to happen, you can deal with it, and it's not too big of an issue because the rest of it is still so good. Like, I just love the Rat Queens. They're all so fucking badass.
Has it had that extra character introduced to the team yet?
yeah, one of the characters has joined the team, and she is my favourite character.
Okay. How is that handled? Like, do they go into that at all, or is it like Lumberjanes?
It's very Lumberjane. Like, you realise...
We're kind of talking in code here, which is probably annoying to listeners.
I'm just going to say it, because it's...
just explain.
Yeah, one of the characters is transgender, and the way they deal with it is there's no reference to her being transgender, but you see her backstory at one point,
right.
And in her backstory, she is the son of this orc chieftain, but then it's just dealt with very, like, it's not her being like, oh god, I'm trans, what do I do? It's just like,
it's not
in the
like
future,
a drama, it's just a fact.
Yeah, in the future she's figured out who she is and knows what she's doing, and no one
awesome.
gives a shit. And I was like, that's the way it needs to be. Like, I'm cool with people with it being obvious that someone is trans, when it's not jammed down your throat as like, oh, look how this poor trans woman has it.
But I guess the
we know
the fact that no one gives a shit just emphasises that what you're reading is a fantasy book.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, well, that's true.
God damn it. But yeah, it's honestly worth continuing to read it, Liam.
Yeah, I do want to. I've got the second volume downstairs to read. I just haven't. Alright, here's the fun bit where Ellie goes, Liam, how many films have you got left to watch? And I say 1080. Yay. And she says, oh, Jason and Lee, when we have guests on the show, we say to them, is it weird that Liam's got 1080 films to watch? And they go,
I don't
it's a
say
bit
that,
weird, but you know.
Jason and Lee have been on the show before and have expressed their viewpoints, so I'm thinking more this time.
Right, here we go.
Liam set the goal this year of getting below 1,000, and so far has watched...
Wasn't that your goal from like 2 years ago?
Yeah. It's actually a more insane goal than he's ever had set. He set himself this goal, and it is like... It was... when he first said, I can get below 1,000, my response was, are you sure you want to say that? Because you haven't met any goal so far, and that one is 115 films.
It's like me saying I'd get below 200 pounds. It's not going to happen.
It's just, yeah, I don't know. I guess, like, what are your thoughts, guys, on how Liam's doing? He's watched, like... So he had 115 to watch, and I think he's watched 35 in half a year.
I have no thoughts.
Fair.
So you're down to 1080.
I think Liam's doing fine. I think that eventually he'll realize that he can give his Blu-rays or his DVDs over to his kids, and they're going to be like, "What the fuck is this?"
Maybe you should you should apply my rules of the 1001 books thing to this. You know, like you watch like a quarter of it, you realize this is shit.
Don't give him more shit to buy.
And they're like, all right, I'm counting that. That's counted. It's off. You know, and you just do that for I don't know, like all the ones that you look at the shelf and go, that's going to be bad. I'll put it in for 10 minutes, bluff my way through it, realize it's terrible, then take it out and fuck it out the window.
I'm thinking of selling a few, because there's definitely some that I'm like, I have no interest in ever watching these. So if I sell them...
you've been thinking about selling these for 2 years now.
Yeah.
He has, but this legitimately felt like a breakthrough for Liam. Like, I know he has always said, like, oh, I might sell them because I'm moving, but this time it's not based on, like, oh, I need to make space. He literally just messaged me the other day and went, I might sell the Scooby-Doo box set of 8 DVDs I own.
How the fuck are you going to sell? No one wants to buy that shit, man. You're going to have to give that to charity. It's the same thing.
It's on eBay. It's going for like 20 quid.
Oh, okay. Well, but it's there.
Yeah.
If it was selling, it wouldn't be there.
Well, maybe 20 quid's too rich. If I undercut and go for like 15, you never know.
Cool.
Yeah. So, okay, so here's the thing. So far this year, I've watched 70 films in total.
That's ridiculous. I mean... That's good work.
Yeah, it's good work.
So,
I watched like 7.
Yeah, so I've got 80 left to go. It feels achievable.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
This could be the year. This could be the
So
year.
I've basically stopped buying films this year. Yeah, I've entirely stopped buying them, pretty much. Like, I'll get 1 or 2 here or there, but I won't do any more of these like 5 for 30s or these stupid box sets that have like 50 Disney films in. And I think as long as I can keep that up for the rest of the year, I'm going to smash this goal. That's it. We never talk about it again. That's that era of the podcast well and truly over. Then we can start dealing with the fact that I've now got about 150 books to read.
Legitimately, Liam, I think you have actually done a good job this year with the not buying stuff. Like, that was always your downfall.
Yeah.
And not even downfall, because, like, fuck the competition. It was just always annoying that I was like, Liam, you're spending so much fucking money on shit you don't need.
Yeah.
And then you've hardly had this realisation this year where you're like,
Books
I
are
don't have
cheaper.
to buy a 5 for 20 from HMV.
No.
I was like, yeah, man.
No, it's 100%
We know.
accurate. I agree. That's one of the big things that I had to go through too. I'm still struggling with it. Just like, okay, do I really need this shit? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having opened some of my action figures now, I realize I don't need to buy that many. It's really that great because every time I keep them closed, they put out a new figure. I want to put it in my collection. Now I'm actually getting the ones I want to open. And so I'm really selective. I'm not just grabbing any crap off the shelves anymore. So, but at the same time, what's your objective though? This is a question we've never really addressed. What's your objective in watching all those fucking things? Because I realized that I had none, and then I was like, well, if I'm doing this for nothing, why would I do it? And with 150 books, I mean, I understand what Lee's doing because he's a word head. He likes the stuff. And I get it. And at the
Clearly, you're not a word head.
I'm not a word head. But it's because I think bookworm sounds dirty. Word head is all right.
No. It's more accurate, though.
Yeah. Fuck off. Hey, how's that for word heading?
Yeah, that's true.
But,
that's way too accurate.
But that's it. I mean, it didn't make me feel better.
Yeah.
So
well, that's the thing.
that's
like,
the
I've tried now with the films that I'm buying to be selective and buy the ones that I'm like, I know I really want to see this. Like, when it comes here, I will have it watched within a week, sort of thing. Whereas I think before, it always used to be in my mind, it was like, well, I kind of want to see that, so I want to have it. So when I'm in the mood to watch it, I can just grab it off the shelf and watch it.
Right.
But as I've realised, like, there'll be nights where I'm like, what do I want to watch? And it will spend me like a solid 20 minutes to just be like, what am I in the mood for? And looking through my shelf. And I'm like, I shouldn't have so many films that I'm so rarely in the mood to watch.
Yeah.
And that's the issue, is that I've got this huge collection of things that I'm like, oh, I might be in the mood for that one day. And then a lot of the days I'm not. And it's just like, it's frustrating. But equally...
Yeah, you just described my entire relationship with my Criterion collection.
Yeah.
I'm looking at them and I was like, why in my right mind would I watch this shit? I have it, but I don't give a shit. It's like a silent film from 1926 that you have to really be in the mood to watch, where there no one's around and you just got the right temperature, and you're like, oh, it's never gonna happen.
I've been threatening myself to watch through this Buster Keaton collection that I've had for easily 2-3 years now. I just feel like this is just never gonna happen. Like, there's no time I'm like, you know what, today, black and white silent comedy, that's the one.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the mood I'm in.
Maria marches in and says, why aren't you getting a job?
Yes,
like,
yes, that's exactly what would happen.
since uni, and especially since like I changed my job role in the last like year or so, I've had a lot less times for film. So like, I had an Abbott and Costello box set, which was something like, I don't know, 26 films or something ridiculous, and I did like solidly work my way through it, and I enjoyed like solidly enjoyed about 3 of them. And then the rest, I was just like, they were either like not for me or just okay. And now I'm like, I don't have time to go through like 23 films that are just okay.
Yeah.
Like, in the hopes that there'll be 3 that are really good. Like, I'd rather just try and be more selective and pick the ones that are good. But equally, when you haven't seen it before, how do you know? Like, there's been times where I've like stuck a film on and been like, this looks like shit. And then I've been like, oh, that was actually super enjoyable.
I just rent it on iTunes now. I don't even buy freaking movies. I just be like, yeah, $6, fine. I'll rent it. If I don't like it, it's not a big deal. Who gives a shit?
And that way as well, you can be very selective about. You don't have to be like, oh, I need a big collection if I'm in the mood for it. It's just, I'm in the mood for this thing. Let's look it up. Yep. But it's taken me a while to get there.
All right. I mean, I understand. Listen, like I said, I'm 39, man. It's taken me a fucking while to get where I am now. I even own a collection of like on iTunes, and I'm like, why'd I buy these? Eventually, they're going to leave the store. It's like it's a virtual front. They don't give a shit about what they have in their catalog. So I just spent money on nothing. I could just rent it, watch it once. If I want to watch it again, I'll rent it again. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I find I very rarely rewatch films as well, because there's so many that I haven't seen. I'm kind of like, why am I going to watch? Unless like I am in a very specific mood. Like sometimes you just get like a scene in your head and you're like, no, I need to see that film. But that's rare. That's housekeeping. We kept the house. Now it's time for culture swap.
Swap my culture.
Thank you very much. So, right, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. We discussed doing this when we were speaking about Godzilla and Kong Skull Island.
Yep.
Which was not on this show, by the way. Worth maybe calling out the
Yeah.
listeners who might be baffled about the mysterious
Yeah.
Kong Island episode that doesn't seem to be in the Nerd on Nerd catalog.
Yeah,
Such
you
a
need to
fun
go
show.
to the Atlantic Screen Connection podcast and go through their episodes to find that.
I'll send you the link. You can put it in the show notes.
Yeah,
Oh, cool. Yeah, I will do that.
But yeah, that was 2 years ago, and we threatened each other by saying we'd have to do this again someday. You know, like when the next Godzilla finally came.
So-
and lo and behold, but at least we can keep a promise. You know.
exactly. Before we dive into Godzilla King of Monsters, just for our listeners that maybe didn't listen to that episode or don't want to go and listen to, I think we recorded for 3 hours or something crazy.
But it's
Something
us.
crazy.
Why
He
wouldn't
looks
they
at
want-
looks at the time code of this episode and like, yes, something crazy.
Yeah.
It's like already too hard.
It's a fun episode. We have a great time talking. So I mean, if
Yeah.
the people
Yeah.
aren't charmed by that, then what they have, they're emotionless
exactly.
bastards. Fuck them.
Should we just kind of get them up to speed with what our very brief thoughts and feelings were on Godzilla and Kong Skull Island?
Oh, sure. Godzilla, I loved the 2014 Godzilla. I really, really, really liked. And Kong Skull Island, I haven't revisited. I thought it was a dumb movie. I didn't care for it at all. I liked the way that they make Godzilla, King Kong, but I didn't. Look, I have to preface all this by saying that I might say a few times that it doesn't make sense. The story doesn't make sense. And at the same time, I am fully aware that Godzilla, a giant fucking lizard, and then King Kong, a giant fucking gorilla, don't make sense in and of themselves either. But that's it. To me, Godzilla made more sense than Kong Skull Island. But, that's it. So yeah, I really, really love Godzilla. I haven't rewatched it since the time we talked about it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to watch it before going see King of Monsters. I didn't get a chance. But Kong Skull Island, I'll eventually rewatch it, but I didn't feel the need to.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alright.
I pretty much echo Jason's on there, and the only thing worth adding is that as time has gone on, I've forgotten a lot about Godzilla 2014 or whatever year it came out.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't remember, having not heard the episode in a while. I can't remember also what the fuck I was talking about. So I'm not even sure. But I do remember enjoying it, and I more vividly remember Skull Island. And I specifically remember why I don't like Skull Island, which is at least something.
Okay.
Because it's dumb. But
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a beating drum of the dum dum dum.
And Ellie?
I also agree with Jason and Lee
Yeah.
in that I love Godzilla and didn't particularly like Skull Island. I do, however, remember my reasons on the episode for liking Godzilla.
Nice.
Because I remember everyone had laid out these really beautiful, in-depth, the film was all this, and then at the end someone asked me what I thought, and I was like,
Godzilla.
I can't do smart, I just like the big lizard fighting
Exactly.
things.
That's right. That's
Cool.
right.
Yeah.
That's of all the things in the episode, other than that we didn't agree with Liam a lot, was you saying I just like big monsters fighting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't not like the first Godzilla. I just didn't love it. I had more issues with it than anyone else here did.
Yeah.
And I actually did really like Kong Skull Island. So you can imagine how fun that episode was to record, where it was just 3 people.
Oh, we got good bits
just
out of that,
hating it.
man. We got really good bits. It's like
Caught
when
the
I
goal.
remember this will always be one of my favorite things of all the recordings that I've ever had. And it was when I told you, yeah, but it's the hero's journey. And then when I finished breaking it down, when you just said, if anything, you've made me like it less. And I was just like, that's not only is that perfect comedic timing, it's just one of those things where you're like, you see, you can break things down as much as you want, give all the reasons. And if that feeling at the bottom of your heart is like, I don't care, it's valid. And it's one of those. It was an
absolutely.
eye-opening thing for me. Is the reason why we don't.
You
do
ruined
this.
the show from that point
Exactly.
on.
I was just like, yeah,
the
he's
luster was
absolutely
already
right. Who
fading.
gives a shit?
Yeah. No, it was a super fun episode, and listeners definitely should go and listen to that if they haven't already. But yeah, so that's how we're coming into Godzilla King of the Monsters. A lot of love for Godzilla, not a lot of love for Kong, which doesn't really matter for this film, in all honesty. Because that's one of the things I didn't realise going into this. I didn't realise that there'd been another film already announced that was titled Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I went in being like, I can't wait to see my boy Kong representing, and like he's there for all of about 3 seconds.
In, like, screenshots.
Yeah, we should say this bit will be full of spoilers for Godzilla King of the Monsters. If you haven't seen it and you really want to, maybe turn us off for a bit, go see the film, and then flick this back on.
Yeah, why not?
Just want to preface this by showing you the notes that I have for today's episode. There you go.
Awesome. It should be good.
Yeah,
So,
good.
before watching this,
Traditional.
the other thing I'd heard is that the
There's
monster
nothing on the
fighting
sheet, Lee.
stuff,
I know,
the
that's
monster
what's
fighting
traditional about
stuff is all good, but the human element was sucky, and so I kind of went in with that in mind. Like that's the only thing I'd seen on, like, I think Twitter or something. Someone had said that, and a lot of people were kind of like countering that by saying, "Well, why are you going to see a film called Godzilla King of the Monsters expecting good, like a good human story attached to it?" But for me, like this for me was better than Godzilla, but not as good as Kong Skull Island.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
No way.
I super enjoyed
Be a
Kong Skull
fun
Island.
20 minutes.
It's just, Jesus Christ.
So that's me. I'll let you guys, start with the bumming of this film.
Hey. Well,
Oh,
first
hold on.
of all,
No, I won't
there's
shit
been
on
there's been a shift in things, because I'm with you, Lame. I liked this film. I really did, and maybe not less than Skull Island, which seems insane, but like. But yeah, no, I'm not going to be on. I have to at least be on your team this time. You're going to not be alone.
But how much did you like this film?
I would say for about up until the 70%, like sort of 7/10 of the way through the film, I was really enjoying it. Dumb and bad parts and good parts all alike. I was like, I'm entertained. I'm very entertained, and I like the concepts and the shit that I'm looking at. I kind of like the story and the characters, even if they don't really exist. and they kept giving me things to think about, which was surprising because I didn't expect to be thinking about anything. And when it started, I certainly felt like it was going to, there's not going to be a thing worth talking about in this fucking film. And as it went along, I was like, oh, you know what? There's some really strange decisions being made here. I keep thinking about them, and I've now written them down in traditional Atlantic Screen Connection way, and I look forward to getting into them at some point. But sort of only towards the end, when the action just becomes so fucking all over the place, that I start really checking out. Up until that point, I was like, this is just really good, and I left thinking, I'm surprised. This was a really good time.
Yeah.
Would watch again.
Fair enough. Jason, how about yourself?
It's complicated. I didn't go in with high expectations because I know that they're trying to build this universe, MCU style. I know that Warner are the ones behind this as well. They're the ones that have the DC property. And you can just smell, I don't know how to say it, corporate greed is probably the best way to look at it, as them trying to really do too many things at the same time, as opposed to just do their series of movies like this guy versus this guy versus this guy. They just threw too many things in my opinion, for this one. So much so that I actually started falling asleep halfway through it because I didn't care.
Yeah.
They show Godzilla within the first minute, and I was like, that's a mistake. Right off the bat, I was like, oh, this is what they're doing. This is not good.
Yeah.
They don't make me earn the monster the way that the original Godzilla did. The original, I mean, the 2014 version, the first one in this series.
Yeah.
The same way with Skull Island. I thought that it was good that they withheld the ape for a big period of time. This one, I understand that this is like kind of a flashback scene in which they show Godzilla, and then after that, they kick into the story. They try to set us up, and then we understand the context in which that happened. The thing is that they kind of Pacific Rimmed themselves to the point where like all the fights are kind of clumsy in the rain and dark and shit like that.
Yeah.
Where I admired like the first Godzilla and even Kong Skull Island for actually taking risks and doing it during the day, which means that they had to be a little bit more accurate with their CGI. This one, they just kind of buried all their crap in darkness, and I think that takes a lot away from the movie. A lot of the times I felt like I was watching Transformers again, which was kind of, I was like, oh, come on. And the human element, there's some good parts, there's some bad parts. Did I care about the divorced family? No. Do I care about Vera Farmiga's Thanos-like plot of trying to erase half humanity? I was like, oh well, it feels like they're trying. It feels like they're trying to make the movie according to what's popular at the time rather than really telling a good story.
Yeah.
So like the whole, to me, there's two metaphors that are conflicting in this one. One is like King Ghidorah would be a representation of like the wrongful king in Donald Trump, and then you'll have also the idea that humanity has to go because we're just killing the planet, and we have to. These are the giant storms that are going to bring back this kind of level playing field. And I'm like, tell one of those stories and I'll be fine with it. Tell both of them at the same time, I get confused as to what you really want me to take from this. And so, I had a hard time with it. That being said, I like the fights. I liked seeing the monsters. Mothra was beautiful. I think they did a great job with that. Rodan could have used a little bit more detail. King Ghidorah, I thought that they looked a little bit too much like, old Chinese paintings and things like that. They should have like kind of tried to go towards a more a new interpretation of what a dragon could look like. And Godzilla just still looks great. He still looks great in this movie. And so, overall, I'd say I had a fun time. Even though I was falling asleep, I'm looking forward to watching it again from my home. Perhaps watching them like all three back to back.
Yeah.
But
it'd certainly be an interesting little marathon.
Yeah.
Like a very tonally strange one, but like an interesting one.
But that's it. Other than that, I thought it was just a big, loud, dumb fest, which is okay, but it felt a bit like a chore to watch.
Okay, that's fair. And Ellie?
That's exactly why I liked it. Because it was a big, loud. I loved it.
Cool.
It's. I get what you're saying about the darkness and stuff, and then trying to hide some of the stuff in that. But also, like, you get some really cool scenes in that. And I know, like Lee was saying, the last, 3/10 of the film lost his interest a bit. But for me, even though it is the most ridiculous bullshit that happens at the end, I just fucking love the four-way, not even the four-way fight, like the 2v2 at the end, where two giant lizard monsters are fighting each other. A giant moth with a stinger tail is fighting a giant fucking reptile pterodactyl
thing. Yeah.
And then like it's all dark, but then you get the Godzilla turning Super Saiyan effectively.
That's pretty great.
Which is just ridiculous. Like, but because it's so over the top, that's kind of what I liked about it. Which is weird because it's also like when you look at other Godzilla films, like not this series, but like Shin Godzilla and stuff.
That was great.
Which is it's such a good film and totally different tonally to these films. So I totally get the like I think I'd be happy either way, where there's like this version of Godzilla where you're looking at like, oh, how does the world survive with the threat of giant monsters, but like on a real human scale. But then I also like these films where it's fucking giant monsters beating the shit out of each other, and also Mothra and Godzilla being in love, which is like, I love that shit.
It's pretty great.
I ship them.
Great. Yeah, absolutely.
Jason mentioned like the Warner Brothers connection with the DC earlier, and I thought it was an interesting way of opening it. It reminded me a lot of Batman vs Superman, where it opens by showing like the aftermath of like the first Godzilla film. Yeah, which I thought was interesting, and I kind of wanted to see a bit more of that.
Yeah,
because I thought that was a really interesting element. That
if they really spent a good 20 minutes on that sort of follow up. It's like such a fucking fleeting flashback that I almost like kind of forget it when I look back at the film because it was so quick.
Yeah.
That whole DC side of it I hadn't considered at all. It's so strange. Like I didn't see. I also like the corporate side that Jason brought up.
Yeah.
It didn't strike me like that. I can see it now. I can see it very clearly. Like
I'm sorry.
Why you would say that? Like, but at the same time, I was like, it didn't strike me in the moment. So like, I guess I can't agree, but I also understand where you're coming from. It's just so strange that how it can affect you so differently. but interesting. And it's not a word you said was incorrect. Just also just very different, I guess.
It's because I liked certain elements. I mean, if you look at the broken family aspect, as a representation of what the United States is going through right now. Vera Farmiga's character is delving in extremism, and look at what's at the heart of the United States right now is that people have gone.
I've got
to
a whole
extremes.
half a page on this, and you've just fucked it up. No, I don't have to say a word.
But I mean, that's it, and even King Ghidorah, this idea of the wrongful king, the guy that's in power, this alien. If you look at it as a metaphor for Donald Trump, he comes from TV. He's not supposed to be in power. He's that alien that's out of context. You know what I mean? And Godzilla itself should be the rightful king. It would be the one that's actually fighting for the people and not against the people. But there are casualties along the way, which is going to create some form of dissent and all that stuff. I get all that. It's just that had I had a little bit less of myself and my prior knowledge of that to take into the film. Like they're asking me to connect the dots that they should have done. You know what I mean? And the whole like destroying of the planet and all that stuff. I get it.
That sort of part of it was like the dumbest part, especially
that's the thing. Yeah.
Monarch themselves. Some of the most flip floppy fucking stances I've ever heard from a evil or good corporation in this. Weren't they evil in in Skull Island?
Yeah,
they seemed like menacing in that film.
Yeah,
And this they're like conservative. It's very fucking. And they even start. Ken Watanabe says like he says something like "We'll be their pets" or something like that. And then halfway through the film, he's like, "This is wrong." It's really fucking. It just jumps from one stance to the other like nothing.
Well, one thing's good is that Tywin Lannister finally got his fucking dragon.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all the 10 lines.
I mean, that was a whole element that I don't know if I necessarily needed in this film. Like the whole eco-terrorists or whatever they were labelling themselves as.
That is what they were labelling. As being labelled as.
I don't think it was entirely necessary.
As a way to try to convince the audience that it was okay for this woman to just be on board with mass genocide,
but as a result of something
so
that
contrived and poorly implemented that it was
it's like she's
see that's what
revenge on the whole planet as a result of losing her son, and you're like, the fuck are you doing?
The genocidal stance on both of the husband guy going in and saying we should just kill all the monsters, like while they're frozen and unable to defend themselves, kill them. He's like, okay, he starts like a genocidal maniac, and then she's like, we should just kill everybody with the giant monster. It's like, is there anybody in this film that isn't trying to kill everybody in some shit before?
Well,
there's 11.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I found a bit like strange about those two characters, because the way the film like starts off, you're very like positioned against the dad, like Carl Chandler's character, and he's sort of depicted as the crazy one who's not dealing with the death of their son very well. And then like there's just this weird moment where it just flips, and it's like, but actually it's the mother that's not dealing with it very well. And I'm just like, I didn't need this flip-flopping. Like, just have one of them not dealing with it well, and the other one, like, being somewhat stable. I didn't need both of them just, like...
And I mean, I guess on a metaphorical level, it's quite good. Like, just with the same thing that, like, Jason was saying, that, like, in times of crisis, families are divided, and everybody, you do get a lot of extremist sort of viewpoints, and we're seeing that right now, and that's all pretty good, and the film does, like, obviously want to force that in there somehow. Not particularly well, but it does it. And then it sort of builds to Eleven's arc, where she because it's like a nice little statement, like, okay, but the next generation looks at their parents and goes like, what the fuck happened? Why are you genocidal maniacs? What caused this? And it's like, well, the environment was bad, so that's why we started shooting each other and getting the monsters to kill each other. Like, it's obviously ridiculous, but at the same time, like, I could see that they had good intentions, and the fact that they kept that middle ground and didn't just think, hey, genocide's cool no matter what way you approach it, like, it's clearly like somebody should do something about it, and it's probably somebody who's attached but a little removed, like, your children or the next generation.
Yeah.
And the film, I felt like, it's good that they put that in there. It's weird though, but good.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something like problematic about that messaging of being like, well, the parents have just fucked everything up, so let's let the kids figure it out. Because that does seem to be the stance that, like,
true.
is being taken. It's like...
Well, it seemed more like Judy, like, I have to do this, you know, like, and it was, so it's kind of true to life that kids just end up fixing their parents' problems. But at the same time, like, it is a bit bullshit. It's kind of like, this is the hand you get dealt.
Yeah.
And that the film was like, don't worry, somebody else will sort it out.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, like, not only in the film, but in, like, the world we live in at the moment, the stakes are getting, like, so high with things like climate change and stuff. And, like, I can't remember the name. There's this activist, just like a 14-year-old girl who's going around.
Greta Thunberg or something?
Yeah. She's, like, doing all these speeches and stuff, and it's like, people are, like, applauding her, and it's like, yeah, that's good, but what's changing?
Yeah.
Yeah, but...
Wait till the dinosaurs do it. What was I going to say?
Delve into what I said. You know, you were talking. You said that you had to. I
You-
want to
you
hear. I
had-
want to hear your take.
But that was it. That was like, you had already done it, and I didn't have much on that.
Okay.
I thought that it was there, and it was interesting that it was. What I thought was more interesting and a little weird
Right.
is the stunts that nukes heal.
That was something that I messaged Ellie about afterwards, and I was like, is this problematic considering,
And I tried
like,
to
the
defend it,
history
but I
of
don't know if I
Godzilla?
can.
Yeah, it's so fucking bizarre, right? So think about the original Godzilla, and I think to an extent the 2014 one,
Yes.
like that nuke's bad, metaphor for World War II or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and then you end up that nature comes in, forces itself into the equation to fix man because man's such a dick and keeps bombing nature. You know, like, fine. So nuke's bad, people usually bad, and nature good. Fine.
Yeah.
So this time, like, nature's still good, but nukes are good because nukes heal nature. Like, you know, because Godzilla's fucking lying around dormant for a while, and then it's like, all right, just pump him full of nuclear energy, he'll be all right.
You know what my
my
thought
only-
was
It's like,
there?
did-
My thought while I was sitting there was like, isn't this going to contaminate the water? How
Oh,
about
yeah, God, yeah.
And I was like, that's you're fucking up the ecosystem even more in order to have it heal. And I was like, that's like basically saying I'm gonna punch my wife one more time to see if she really gets the point I'm trying to make.
Leslie walked right past you.
But it didn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? That was my
Yeah.
one thing. I was like, you're gonna like have this nuclear detonation underwater in order to make Godzilla better, but you're killing all animal life around us. Whatever.
Yeah,
I was just
but
thinking
it's-
too
yeah, but
much
that's what I
about
mean.
that.
That's
There was something
And-
that didn't sit right with me either, where, like, so my understanding is like Godzilla has always been very much like Japan's response to American nuke in the mid World War II, very anti-nuke message. So to then have this like American film come along and be like, well, we're gonna, you know, reclaim
Retcon
that,
that,
yeah, and
Yeah.
now us nuking, actually, pretty
Yeah,
good.
You know, it actually did Japan a little good.
Yeah,
you know?
there's
Who's to
something
say?
about that that just like.
really made them think twice about being an imperialist state.
Yeah, like as soon as that happened, I was just like, that doesn't sit right with me. Like,
No, that's so fucking bizarre.
But,
It's
I get it, and I totally agree with you, and I think you guys are right. But as a sort of devil's advocate, or like, is there another way to look at it? Right? I know that there is that overt message of nuke's good, we healed Godzilla, but in that same scene, you also have nukes aren't good because the only way we can use this nuke for good is to sacrifice this just throughout the film nice guy who is just trying to do good. So you have him die, and you also have like the oxygen destroyer bomb, whatever. So like there is also a scene that counteracts that and is like, yeah, let's just fucking bomb these monsters. That sorts everything. And then it's like, oh shit, we just killed the one good thing and made the bad thing better. So like, I get it, and there is definitely a
nukes
problematic
good,
message.
new bombs
Yes,
bad.
but at the same time-
don't you miss the good old days where nukes were about?
Don't you find it problematic that the character they send down is the only Japanese one?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Like, of
Yes,
course.
massively.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
that is the fatal flaw of my argument, Jason. I'm aware of that.
It's like, okay,
I just-
he's the one going down with the nuke in order
Yeah.
to reactivate the whole. Anyway, I was like, yeah, it's a touch sensitive. I don't know.
It is definitely a massive problem with the film. I just was so desperate to find a reason for it not to be quite as problematic as it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting at the same time, like, because it's kind of like the film's like on board with like the sunk cost fallacy, like in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, we nuke, but if we nuke again, it will solve our problems. Just
and
keep
we
on
get the
nuking.
Japanese blessing with it too.
Yeah, it's like, don't worry, it's all right.
Yeah,
Nuking
you can
is
do
cool
it this
now.
time because it's for the greater good.
And I mean, like, it does in the film. It solves the short-term problem of like monster anarchy, but then it just replaces it with like monster monarchy.
Yeah.
What the fuck are we doing? Like, that is fucking free. What do we do? Like, we now pay this dinosaur to look after us, freeloading off our taxes. I don't really understand what they're trying to build to.
Even that
Yeah.
scene
Or
at
what
the
they-
end
you
when
know-
all the monsters show up and just kind of kneel, you're like, what
Yeah,
is this,
it's
a
like-
circle of
it's also-
life? Is very Lion King for some reason?
Yeah.
It's very
One of-
sexist as well, for the
one of-
patriarchy.
One of the monsters in that end scene, right, that kneels, and that they show throughout the film, is a Muto, right? You know, the ones from
Yeah,
the first
that's
film.
right, that's
'cause
right, from the first one.
Either it's a monster that looks eerily close, or it is a surviving Muto, right? So, in the first film, those monsters weren't like, oh, okay, Godzilla's the boss, we'll stop.
Yeah,
And then at the end of this film, they're like, oh, yeah, so we can assume that at the end of this film, that monster's like, oh, Godzilla's just won. Yeah, cool, I won't cause shit. But the moment he pisses off back into the ocean, it is just going to be like destruction. There's now all these fucking alpha monsters that have woken up and are going to kill everything.
The Mutos are like the star screams of the Godzilla verse, and they're just like, oh, we're on your side.
It is very, like, I wonder if the next film, which is obviously Godzilla vs. King Kong, I wonder if it's going to deal with, like, is it all going to be on Skull Island? Because I don't want that. I don't want to watch all the monsters
Maybe it's
go
in New
to
York.
Skull
I
Island.
think it's
but
gonna be in New
they
York.
can't keep destroying cities. Like, poor,
No, I know.
Poor Boston.
Oh,
what
but
the
they
fuck,
can.
man?
Have
You know what
you
I'd
seen
love?
the original Godzilla films? That's all that
You know what
happens.
I would love? I would love it to be in Canada somewhere. Nothing ever
just like,
happens
fuck up
here.
Quebec.
Have them destroy Toronto or Montreal or some shit. That'd be great for me. I'd just be sitting there like, oh, there goes the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah, at least you
great,
get
man.
something personal out of it. Yeah, that's true. I just think it's funny because the kind of metaphor, if in itself, it kind of seems like it might be about just the franchise Godzilla.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what you do, nukes created this thing, and then like they could pump more nukes into it. If they essentially keep trying to deconstruct it and do something new with it, and all it does is make more Godzilla because it's more exposure. Like, it's this never-ending franchise.
Yeah.
That you can't go back to the source and try to reinvent it. You just end up fucking making more out of it, and it's stronger than ever. And I don't know, what the fuck was their point?
Yeah.
I can't figure it out. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun. Like, it did pay off because we got to see Super Saiyan Godzilla, and I mean, that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
That was what I was there for. So, like,
I mean,
That's
one
very
of the
weird.
things,
Yep. Sorry. Keep going.
So one of the things that I did really enjoy was that there was quite a few shots that felt like they were like almost like wallpaper shots where you're like, oh, okay, this is going to make like a good screensaver or something. Like, just the way it was framed and lit and everything, just really like nice to see as like a still image almost. A lot of the actual action, movement, fighting stuff, like Jay said earlier, very Transformers-y, where I think it just lacks the right weight for these things to be like fighting. As you're watching it, the physics of it just don't quite seem to make sense.
like, yeah, especially near the end where they're like in like a go-kart going around town, and
Yeah.
like these like 4 different monsters are quaking all over the place, and like there's no repercussions for the humans. They're just sort of
Yeah.
steady.
I mean, that whole like final stuff where they're all in like this sort of burnt out city trying to get to Millie Bobby Brown's character. All of that was just very messy for me. Like, I
Yeah,
quite enjoyed some of the
absolutely.
action sequences leading up to that, but that one just no.
It felt like a weird old-fashioned 3D film where things would come to the camera and you'd be like, "Whoa, watch out!"
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, they're trying to shock us in very boring and tame ways, and at the same time, there's so much shit going on, and the environment is so busy that I can't possibly focus on what's happening. And it's strange because in that respect, I do totally agree with the Transformers point of view. But like up until then, I although the weight thing is definitely a problem, I do agree with that. I felt like it was very easy to keep track of the action because it was pretty slow and telegraphed. And what they did very cleverly was always focus on the people sort of trying to get away from it. You know, like they're in this ice place. Sure, maybe a little hard to see, but like I was really on board for that fight where they're in the fucking lifts and this guy's just breaking out of the ice. You know, and I'm like, wow, that's tense. You know, and I actually give a shit because it's very easy to track what the threat is in this particular scenario. And then Godzilla shows up and they're in this bus or whatever. it's like, okay, they're near a cliff and that's tense. I get it. It's important what's happening to these people. They are nearly dead. It's going to be hard for them to get out of this. Whereas the monster side of it is, they're biting and they're shooting lasers, and that part is hard to keep up with. But like the laser nearly hits the plane that's crashed, and they're like, shit, that's important for that reason. And I thought that kept me on board throughout until that last fight scene, which is like, there are now 4 monsters beating the shit out of each other. I can't really see them. And also there's like some fucking Prometheus running away from shit. that's just not sinking in or making any sense.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that the fight scenes, as many as there were unimaginative. That was my problem with it, is that
a little bit. They're a little bit like, this worked for Jurassic Park, why won't it work for Godzilla?
Kinda, you know. I mean, like, why didn't Godzilla swing his tail once, you know, to whack like out of surprise? If this guy's like a pure instinct and stuff like that, then he's been fighting for years and years and years. You'd think that he'd pick up some form of experience, and so. But that's it. So, he just goes for the heads all the time. And if he's already fought King Ghidorah, he knows that those heads grow back. He must have found something else somehow. And he's been monitoring that thing in Antarctica, Monster Zero, for I don't know how many years, because now apparently he's got tunnels under the earth. Glad Mr. Exposition there, Bradley Whitford, was there enough to give us all that information, and
that's
just
right.
Like just this expositional
he's
dumps,
in the
like,
tunnels.
what happens to this? Just like, okay, cool. Thank you for solving that problem, Mr. Script person. But yeah, so I think there was one moment where I was like, whoa, that was cool, and I couldn't tell you what it is. Because I got frustrated with just how the action scenes were going. Especially that first fight between Godzilla and King Ghidorah down in Antarctica, when they're literally standing. It looks seemingly like the thickest fucking ice you could probably find. Because you got 2 giant dinosaurs going at it. And then you're like, why isn't that cracking? Because every time they take a step, they seem to be cracking something. You know? So that was bizarre to me. And the them trying to get into the helicopter or the plane to get away, and it just seemed so like there's no way that they're just kicking that thing around. If Godzilla kicks something,
like
it's
the force of it, like
dead.
everyone's smeared on the inside.
Exactly, it's just spinning, like it's on ice, and I'm like, have one of them slip. Have one of the things miss a.
There was, I agree with that to an extent. It felt very like 12A at times, where like they didn't show a lot of violence or death that actually had consequences because they didn't want to, I don't know, scare off kids. And maybe the original script was like a little more violent, and you did see these sort of repercussions where you're like, dispensable red shirts are flying all over the place. And so in this, like, we get to see maybe like 2 shots of blood on the ground and a sort of off-screen car crushing, and then everybody else survives or gets like eaten cartoonishly without any gore. And it's kind of like, okay, it's cool for kids, and that's fine, but like it does kind of, sometimes I was like, this does kind of hurt the sort of impact of what we're supposed to be seeing here. Well, if this is the monster film, like, this is a disaster and everybody is like kind of dirtied up, and that's the best they can do.
I think the one part that I remember going whoa and laughing is when the pilot ejects from the jet and he goes directly into Rodan's mouth. I was like, that someone thought of that, and I thought that was good. Really funny. It's like, that's not the place you're gonna just dive into the ocean, dude. That's the best thing you can do. Yep. Don't go up where it is. Just like fucking plunge. Do as fast. I thought that was funny. It's like, I'm getting out of here. Like, okay, cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I'd seen this film before. I feel like that's what it was. When I watched Godzilla in 2014, I was like, wow, this is a fresh take I can get behind. I had never seen what you described as the Mutos before. I'd never seen that concept of a beast before. I love what they did with Godzilla. King Kong, I still like Peter Jackson's version better than Kong Skull Island. I like the 1933 version as well. I'm not keen on the 1976 version of King Kong, but I like the way that the monster's designed. But this one, like I said, I feel like I'd seen this movie before, and I think like you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, it was called Jurassic World.
A bit of that, a bit of like what you said, Batman versus Superman, even like a bit of Justice League in there, where at one point you're like, geez, you're just throwing everything at the screen and hoping something sticks, and it just got to the point where I was kind of clubbed into I don't give a shit anymore. I will rewatch it because the parts that I did like, I really, really liked. But sadly, I was just like, you guys need a better script. And I know that sounds dumb coming like for just a giant action monster movie, but you started it off with the film like that. Why can't you keep going?
That's true. And nobody liked it, Jason.
So, Ellie, I know you obviously want to talk about Mothra.
I do, but actually, I've got something else to say first, Liam, which is not like a pro or a con thing, I don't think. But I think it's an interesting choice they made, because with the comparison to like DC and Batman vs Superman and the Justice League, right? Mm-hmm. One of the problems I had with those films was I felt like, especially BVS, there was that big bit in the middle that is described sometimes as a trailer for Justice League, where they show all the intros for the other characters. Like
that's right. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's I don't know what it means.
They have the same thing in this movie. We keep going. Yeah.
But they didn't have so when they're showing all the like other alphas waking up, I didn't see any of the famous ones. Like I was sitting there being like, oh shit, we're gonna see like. I can't remember their fucking names, half of them. But they're like a giant woolly mammoth. I was like, that's not a classic Godzilla monster. Like, give me fucking Aquila or whatever his name is, the like rodent with the spiny back.
The armadillo dude.
Give me the dude with the hook hands. Give me Mechagodzilla. That's what I'm waiting for. These films cannot be done until they give me Mechagodzilla.
See, Mechagodzilla is going to be the
suit they build for Godzilla.
Well,
Tony Stark is going to be in the next film.
What if King Kong has to wear a Mechagodzilla suit to beat Godzilla?
Oh my god. No, but I mean, in that film, Mechagodzilla is going to be the equivalent to the Batman v Superman. Do you know who the fuck did they kill at the end of that?
Doomsday.
He's not called Doomsday.
Yeah.
You know, just the sort of we were going to fight each other, but it turns out that it's actually pretty insensitive to the nations that we represent to actually have one kill the other. So we're just going to buddy up and be joint kings and kill the big robot because we can all agree technology bad, nature good.
So yeah, Mothra.
Yeah, Mothra's fucking great, and I will hear no wrong about her. She's my favourite Godzilla monster ever now.
Oh, yeah,
I thought it was going to be fucking stupid. I was like when you see the old clips of Mothra, she's a giant moth. And I was like, it's going to be cool, but also is it just going to look stupid? And like, we'd seen clips and stuff in the trailers, but like, when you get that first scene of her under the waterfall and unfurling the wings, I was like, that looks fucking cool as shit.
Yeah.
And like, there was just the only time that maybe I could see that it was a bit silly was right at the end fight where you can see Mothra in all her moth-like glory. And I was like, okay, it does look a bit weird having a moth fighting lizards. But she was still badass. Like, she takes a shot from Ghidorah and explodes into, like, dust and all that shit. And I was like,
that's right.
She's just so fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it leaves the mark.
I'm gonna get the action figure, by the way, of Mothra. I'll be able to take a few pictures of her. She's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
But then, Ellie, you did say, would it be weird if someone fell in love with Mothra?
Yeah, no, I have literally fallen in love with Mothra. I'm terrified of moths, but I do legitimately love Mothra. I came out of that movie like, I've fallen in love with a giant moth monster, and that's fucking weird.
It looks great.
Only by your standards.
Very cinematic monster.
Yeah, that scene as well. Not the under the waterfall one, but the other one where she's in the sky and lights up everything. I thought that was such a beautiful shot as well. That just looked so cool. Like,
definitely those screensaver moments.
Yeah. When you said screensaver moments, I was like, Mothra in the
time.
sky.
How did that scene work, by the way? I wanted to get you guys' opinion on that because she comes in to save Godzilla, so she sprays whatever the fuck she's spraying on him with this magic Tinkerbell fairy dust.
Yeah, magic healing.
Exactly.
Dust, yeah.
But the thing is that he doesn't heal. He needs the nuclear reactor as well. So, I mean...
Oh, but he is healing, and they say
it takes too long.
It's going to be about 70 odd years, but it will do it.
Yeah.
She's just
right,
going to wait there.
cool. That's the part I forgotten. Sorry about that.
It is weird because they don't establish, like, I ended up watching a bunch of stuff about the monsters that were going to be in this film because I'm like a big Godzilla fan who hasn't seen a lot of Godzilla films.
Yes.
So like beforehand I was like, oh, I want to know more about like the history of Mothra and all this stuff. And it's weird that they have these little references to the original Mothra. So she comes from this island. There's these, every generation of these people have these two twins that become Mothra's like attendants. And
right, okay.
They reference that in the film because the second in command of what they called the company,
Monarch.
She's like, oh, my grandparents, my two aunts, like discovered Mothra, and it shows them, and they're these twins, and I was like, oh, that's like them being like, hey,
cool.
Look, we remember the twins, they're in there, but then they don't give you enough information, like the fact that Mothra is this super regenerating creature who lives a life cycle where she grows into Mothra, inevitably dies, and then is reborn as the cocoon. But they don't reference that. So then the whole bit at the end where she is healing Godzilla, you're like, oh, okay, because she's this super regenerative creature, she can help out. But they don't reference it in the film, really. No one's like, we've seen this same monster appear multiple times, or whatever. Just a throwaway line to give it a bit of context.
Just like, this moth monster has magic healing parts.
Yes,
We should have
I would have loved
that.
one to be like, I think the moth monster can heal things.
Bradley Whitford is like,
what
they got the moth, man. It's like this is the 100,000th cocoon that she's made based on our research.
So, with the next one being Godzilla versus Kong, one thing I can't figure out, and I was hoping maybe someone here would be able to help. Why are they going to fight?
Maybe Kong dissents. He believes. There's that. Maybe Kong believes more in like in a democratic party or a system, and that's why he's like, I want equal vote, and Godzilla's like, I have total rule and right over all monsters, and so they it's like a political it's an analogy for some war. Somebody knows, the American War for Independence. There we go. Boom.
When's the next American elections?
2020.
Oh, and that's when this film's coming out.
Yeah.
Oh, how convenient. Bet
So
they
this
don't reference
is a
that.
very strange thing, though, because if you look at the 1933 version of Godzilla, King Kong, sorry, that it's a whole metaphor for colonialism. Black man and all that stuff, bringing them over, profiting from whatever the hell they have. And then you'll have Godzilla from 56, where it's a response to the nuclear attack. And then you'll have Americans making this movie now. And you're like, well, which one's the villain? Because they're both villains.
Yeah.
But they're trying to make Godzilla into a hero. And then in Kong Skull Island, you kind of look at Kong and you're like, I kind of want him to kill these people because they're so dumb. So he's kind of the hero too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay.
See, this is where we're back on the Batman v Superman wagon, because this is the exact same fucking problem. They have to contrive a reason for them to fight.
You know what would
I
be
said
great
to
in the
Liam-
movie, man? Is if Kong looks at Godzilla and he signs like Coco the Kitten type sign language, do you bleed? And then Godzilla leaves and he signs, you will. I'd love to see that.
That would be
That's
amazing.
Or they stop fighting because they both know somebody called Mothra.
That's Lee. That is the exact joke I made to Liam when he asked me this after the film.
Good. That's good. That's.
But
I might have stolen that.
who do you think would win in that fight?
Godzilla? Are you nuts? That guy's a fucking. He's a Super Saiyan. The other guy's just a big monkey.
First of all, King Kong is not fully grown in Kong Skull Island. He's going to be massively bigger than that. And or they're going to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids Godzilla. We'll see how they decide to handle that. And don't forget that Godzilla's been fucking like taking down T-Rexes and giant lizards his entire fucking life. Yes, he's maybe not a fire-breathing whatever the hell that is, but who knows? Maybe Godzilla is going to be shooting that nuke shit into King Kong. And it's going to be like the Hulk. It's going to be gamma radiation that actually makes him grow. So it's going to go against Godzilla.
Well, that's what we've learned, right? Nukes heal.
Yeah.
Exactly. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe like Oh, there was a character in the Wildcats called Maul who, like, if he was next to kinetic energy, it would actually just make him grow and become dumber. Maybe they're going to be ripping off Image Comics somehow, where when Godzilla blows that fire-breathing nuclear energy, it's actually what creates King Kong and makes him grow. So Godzilla will not be able to use that power against Kong, making him on even footing. So we'll see how that goes.
There you go. Then you're going to see your tail attacks at long last. It's going to address your criticisms of the second film.
You never know. I'm hoping that Kong rips out Godzilla's tongue, just like in the original King Kong movie.
I don't want that.
It's really cool.
Seems sad.
Are we going to discuss Godzilla vs Kong when it comes out?
Sure. I don't mind.
Of course we are.
Perfect.
Of course we are.
Good.
Let's make this a tradition. I don't mind.
Yeah, no, there won't be. Yous might not have a podcast by then. We'll still come back to this.
Are there any other points about Godzilla King of the Monsters that anyone wanted to make?
I have a few.
Cool.
Just a few. Very short ones. Millie Bobby Brown says, "Would Andrew have wanted this?" And Andrew is the kid who dies at like 3 years old, and when the monster and sort of complains to her mother, like, "What are you doing? Do you think the 3-year-old child would be okay with this?" And it's like, shut the fuck up. The child doesn't know anything. He might actually wanted mass genocide. You don't know.
Well, in my head, my response would have just been, well, he's dead, so it doesn't matter what he wanted. I'm going to do what I want anyway.
Yeah, but that's why you could just use him for any argument.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, that's why it's not a good argument.
No.
Like, would he have wanted this? It's like, he doesn't want anything. He wants food. He wants food and sleep and play. He's a child.
Yeah.
He wants miniature versions of those monsters.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like, he probably thought it was fucking awesome that all these monsters ruled the world. The cross shot.
Yeah.
You know, the shot with Ghidorah.
Oh, that was
cross?
weird.
Like,
yeah, man, I agree.
What the fuck was that?
It's like religion has no place here.
It's like, it was in my head. It was like, "Where's your god now?" And then the answer is
King
that they
Ghidorah.
are trying to make Godzilla actual Christian god. Is that what they're going for? It's
Well,
like,
that's what
yeah,
they did with
response.
Superman.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess.
You had the whole
That's true.
sacrifice and resurrection, didn't you?
God, yeah, it's the same fucking
Oh,
story.
Christ,
I
no,
never
you
realized
just
it
put that in
before.
my brain now. Now we've got our Godzilla's Jesus. Oh, shit.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
Does
so
that
like,
make King Ghidorah
but why?
Judas? Anyway.
Yeah, well,
What does that make Kong, though?
I don't know. St. Peter. And they had like a really violent argument about heaven. And then also the film stance on marriage reminded me of the Sophocles quote: "A bad marriage no longer make or oh god, really fucking this up." Like his quote is like, paraphrased terribly: "Marry, a good one is good, and a bad one makes philosophy, or makes you a philosopher," or
Right.
something like that. And it's like, now it's the paraphrasing for the modern times is, "A bad marriage no longer makes philosophy, it makes the apocalypse." That's a really firm stance against marriage, this film. And, without God's presence as well, I mean, what does it all mean?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so this is the best I can do with Godzilla 2, King of the Monsters.
I thought it was interesting, like, the very first shot with Millie Bobby Brown in it, who I thought was good in this, but it is her, like, swearing, and it was almost as if they were like, right, we're trying to make a very clear cut here between what you'd know her for with Stranger Things and what we're doing with her now, but equally...
Yeah, she talks in this.
Yeah, equally, like, we've been referring to her as 11 throughout a lot of this. I feel like there wasn't... Like, they tried to make that
characters. Her name is Madison. I'll remember that. What are the other characters' name?
Angry Wolfstad.
To me, that's
Genocide
Kyle
Mom.
Chandler, Norma Bates, Tywin Lannister.
cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I can do Charles Dance, but I can't do any of the others.
Yeah, Bradley
Yeah.
Whitford is all right. He's the father in Get Out. Ken Watanabe, I'll always love. Sally Hawkins is there, and we haven't mentioned her once because she's given nothing to do except die.
Yeah, she's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
It's
a
like,
real
I'm
shame.
too expensive to be in this film for this entire contract. You're going to have to write me out early on, because I'm not going to stick around.
As much as Kyle Chandler is a good actor, he has to change his reaction face because it's always the same.
Yeah, I agree.
Always the same.
I've always tried to steer away from describing actors that have a certain expression by that
He's
expression.
always concerned.
But he genuinely does have a constipated look throughout this film. Like, it's really
Just concerned.
really dealing with it.
Yeah.
Because I saw him, like, my girlfriend has gone back and started watching Grey's Anatomy, and he's on the show at one point as a what is it, bomb squad guy, and he walks in, and I just, like, I watched Godzilla like less than a week ago, and it's the same fucking face. And he's defusing a bomb again. You know? I was like, oh, what the fuck? Yeah. The bomb in Godzilla being his wife. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, come on, Kyle. Let's go. Get another face.
Yeah, wake up.
Something that I thought was really interesting is you had the military sort of leader, for all intents and purposes in this film, was like the woman with like the shaved head, right? I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's like quite progressive. I like that. But then there was another scene later on where you had like two military people talking. I can't remember who plays them, but like someone just does like science mumbo jumbo, and then the woman's like, "Oh, what does that mean?" And then the guy answers, and I was like, "Why are you going to be like all progressive and have like this like cool badass woman in the lead, but then like you could just flip who asked and who answered that question, and still be like having a much better outcome than what is just like, oh, okay, it doesn't sit right in this day and age watching that kind of interaction.
Yeah, active mansplaining.
Yeah, exactly.
and for fucking Godzilla exposition, like, for God's sake.
Yeah, and have Sally
Could they have
Hawkins
painted
go,
the same picture?
have Sally Hawkins go deliver the payload.
Yeah.
It solves the whole
but
Japanese thing again.
I mean, she's too expensive.
But at the same time, it would have been one of those things where a lot of people would be talking like, oh my god, and in the Del Toro movie she sleeps with the fish guy, and now she's in love with the giant dinosaur. What the fuck else is Sally Hawkins into?
But
I'd be okay
she's
if
like
it's
a mother
just,
of a bear in Paddington as well. She's just in with the animals.
all
man.
of her films now is just her being in love with weird shit. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
That's absolutely.
that'd be great. I want to see her on Acto milking them those same things as Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
I want Mothra to bring her back, and she comes back riding Mothra.
Oh man, that'd be fucking cool. I'd love that.
To be like a heavy metal album. Fucking awesome.
Absolutely. She should be the next Professor X. Shave her head.
Why not?
Tilda Swinton did it
Yeah, she was great too.
for Marvel. Should be a trend.
Bald-headed women. I'm into that.
Alright, is there anything else about Godzilla King of the Monsters?
No, I think I'm out.
They should have
Ellie?
called it Godzilla 2, period.
Yeah.
It was called Godzilla 2 here.
Oh, really? Because King of the Monsters
Yeah.
sounds fucking dumb.
Yeah, it is.
Monsters aren't
But
positive.
it also spoils how it ends.
Well, it's like Return
It's
of
like,
the
is he gonna
Jedi.
be-
Return
I
of
bet
the
you he's
King.
going to be
I mean,
King of the
it's-
Monsters.
Yeah, true.
It's too long as a film
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I know.
15 minutes
As a
too
film
long.
in general, you're right. You're right.
15 minutes.
It really could have, like, 20 minutes off it.
Yeah.
It was the 2 hour mark. You know, it had been an hour and 45, maybe an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It would have been a fucking
'Cause
breeze.
2 hours and 15 minutes is just, I'm like, you don't need it.
Mhm. For all that exposition that didn't matter anyway. For all those fucking court cases and shit at the start that actually
I'm gonna
hurt
have
the
to
film
sit through
rather
all
than
that
aided
again
it.
and try to piece it all together. Because on one sitting, you're like, all right, all this is confusing, but it has to be confusing for a reason. So next time I
Yes.
watch it, I'm gonna take notes and draw timelines. It's gonna be
Well,
great.
'cause, yeah, you had that
Yeah.
whole that court room, and then there's this bit where he's like, "Oh, if you leave, that we're going to take that to mean bad stuff." I still can't remember what the consequences were of them leaving.
I think that allowed them to use the no oxygen bomb.
Yeah.
That was essentially
Is that
what
what
the consequence of that was,
Right.
but it wasn't super clear.
No.
And it also could have just been done with, like, they could have just dropped the fucking bomb. What does it matter? They also just brought that bomb up out of fucking nowhere anyway. So,
Yeah.
like, by the way, we have a new bomb and it takes all the oxygen out of the air. It's like, okay, I guess we're doing this. Go ahead.
But
Because it didn't work on the other one of the monsters because he's from space. So, okay.
so,
Fine.
Ellie, I know you super love this film. I mean, we've all kind
Yeah.
of like, not been attacking it so much, but like raising concerns
Yeah.
with it. But what's your stance? Like, I know you
But-
just love it, so like, do you want to just have a bit of time to explain that?
No, I think I've said all the reasons I love it, and I agree with what everyone's saying. Like, I don't disagree. I just, as we all know from my past comments, I fucking love watching giant monsters beat the shit out of each other. So, like, I'm down.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Like, It's like Pacific Rim. Like, it's not a great story, but I get to watch giant robots fight giant monsters, and when I'm in the mood for that, I love it.
Barely visible giant monsters.
I prefer when they are more visible.
We all have our quips, or niggles.
I like the the one thing that kept me going in this one is just that I like those monsters. I like the design of the monsters, and I was okay. The thing is that what they did with them was underwhelming, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's all.
A little bit.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And like at the start, I was saying how people like online, I see them complain about the human elements of this. I honestly didn't think it was a big issue. Like some of the what is it motivations didn't exactly make sense. But at no point was I like, oh, just get me back to the monster fighting scenes.
Yeah, I agree. I'm totally I had the same approach when I heard that people were upset about the human element, like they were in the other Godzilla
That's the
film,
thing.
only for totally different reasons. I just kind of get the impression if they got the Godzilla film that is just monsters 100% of the time, they'd also hate that.
Yeah.
So I think it's the thing that a lot of people are trying to convince themselves they like monster movies when they don't, and they want to go for the easy target, which is it's not the monsters, it's the people. And it's not true. Like, the people kind of frame the monsters, and in this case, I thought they did a pretty okay to good job. Not perfect. You can't really tell a good, meaningful, real story that starts with both parents wanting to commit genocide to some degree. To kind of unsets where the reality of the scenario comes in, but there's parts of it I really liked. I genuinely did want to see how they were going to resolve. I cared about Millie Bobby Brown's character enough to be like, I want to see her get through this. Yeah. And I like how she's sort of torn between the parents, but at the end of the day makes her own fucking mind up and just does that. I thought, good. You don't always have to be dependent. You want to do that, but at some point you just got to fucking play the loudspeaker and get the big monster to stop fighting. Like that's fine.
But we've
good.
seen that story in Terminator 2, though.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
story. Like, yeah, but I'm just saying that it was told better. What I would have really, the first movie deals with the broken family better.
Oh yeah,
we didn't need divorce.
To be clear,
parents. We could have had a grieving
2014 film
family.
Human Element so much better. But yeah, I totally agree. The 2014 film does it just so much better in terms of like that. It realizes that the humans do frame the story to such an extent that it really does play into it. Maybe like in Liam's case, maybe too much. But like at the same time, at least even if the monsters hadn't been there or were just not Godzilla or it was just a faceless amalgam, that part of the story was good in its own right. But the human element, it could have been the same whether it was Godzilla or not, because that's how strong it was. And in this one, it's a lot of how the conflict works out is just because it's heavily leaning on the Godzilla lore, and it kind of weakens it by, like the fact that they have one of them's really into technologically manipulating Godzilla monsters, and while it wants to be like as detached as the first one, it kind of misses because it leans so heavily on how these monsters really do affect their lives. When a lot of the times, like in the first one, it's kind of just an abstract circumstance that separates you, that kind of, yeah. So I kind of get it, but I kind of think this one still did a decent job of, what's that? It's like bumper plate family story. It's fine. Yeah. Is that the word? Bumper plate? That doesn't sound right.
Boilerplate?
Boilerplate, thank you.
It's word head.
Bumper plate. It sure fucking is. I have word.
Alright. Out of 5, Ellie.
4.5.
Lee.
3.5.
Jason.
3.
I would agree with that. It'd be a 3 for me as well.
Fair enough.
Cool.
Yeah, that was awfully amicable, given how the last conversation that we had about Godzilla went.
Yeah.
Well, it's because Liam's getting older now. He's less pig-headed.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not that people are just starting to
It's the beard.
see
It
from
comes
my
out.
point
The
of view.
nobility comes out in the beard.
Alright, next time, on the next episode of your favourite podcast, presumably, we're going to be reviewing and discussing Days Gone, which is a video game, which we don't do a lot of those, so come and check that out, I guess.
Yeah, if you've got thoughts, let us know.
How do they do that?
Tweet us at Nerd or Nerd. Email us at nerdornerdpod@gmail.com. Facebook.com/nerd-on-nerd-pod, all one word. Comment on an old YouTube video, which is the thing Liam's asking people to do, which makes no sense, but they can do it anyway.
Oh, we did get a comment on a YouTube video, actually. I should have mentioned that in housekeeping.
Well, you've missed it now. I'll see you next time.
Ah, well. Jason, where can people find you on the internet?
For now, I'm going to be on Instagram, so come give me a follow if you want to see the pictures we were talking about earlier. It's going to be at Jason B. Michael. Same handle that I have on Twitter. I use it on Instagram. That's it. You'll see about, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 pictures I've taken so far. And it's a really fun community to be part of. So, yeah, it's a lot of positivity there playing.
Awesome. Cool. And Lee, where can people find you on the internet?
I guess I'm still on Twitter. So, at Lee Paul Brady. I don't know. I might do, in the coming weeks or months, I might start working on other projects, seeing as my schedule has kindly opened itself up a little bit. You don't know. There was a podcast I was talking to Jason before about maybe doing, kind of let it go to the wayside, but I might pick it up again. And if that happens, you'll find out on that Twitter.
Ooh. Awesome. Or in a year's time when we talk about Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you for joining us.
That's cool.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us, guys. Again, Jesus.
Happy to. Always happy to discuss films and stuff with you guys, even if you are beyond that now. Any final thoughts?
For years.
I'd fuck a giant moth.
This episode's so long.
Final thoughts is, as much as I want to do this, I'd say we should do this more often, but then I thought about it and I was like, no, this is just the right amount of time.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.